Hi, I'm Joshua Kemble, and this is my live stream where I work on book two of Two Stories, which is the sequel to my first book, which is Two Stories, book one, which you can now get on Amazon.com or any other online retailer. But Amazon might be a good place to get it. I forgot to kind of do the pitch. It's basically a graphic memoir that grapples with questions of faith, mental illness, depravity, and ultimately redemption in a fallen world. It's 122 hand lettered, hand inked, and hand drawn pages that I can now hand to you in print on online, and you can actually get it also at like any local indie friendly bookseller as it's available through Ingram, the distributor. So yeah, that my first book came out back in like December, and so I do these live streams. It's a nice book, but what about the price? Frank said. So it's about half off on Amazon, and then with Prime, it's free shipping. So like it's like $9 for like a $19 book, which $19.99 book, which is a pretty good deal. So yeah, so anyhow, this is the live stream where I basically work on um, the uh, the sequel to that book. And so what I'm working on right now are roughs and thumbnails for the next section. And I'm hoping to kind of plug through it tonight and just kind of see where I get. So um, right now I'm working on roughing out page 117 of what will be like 120-ish pages. And I'm a little wiped out, partially because we did a stream already where we talked to Javier Hernandez on Artcasters, but the show must go on, and I need to get more of these pages comped out. So that's what I'm going to do, because that's what we do as cartoonists. We push through and get work done. Yeah. So how are you doing, Frank, by the way? And did you like Artcasters? I hope it was kind of cool. And then Frank was asking if we can expect Avenging Pineapple tonight. There was somebody under the user handle Avenging Pineapple on the Artcaster stream who seemed to have some kind of problem with like inclusivity in comics. And I called them out, and then they very quickly disappeared. I have a suspicion they're not going to come back. And now I'm going to basically get to roughing out the next page. I had a really good day today. Like, so I ordered a banner, and you can check it out on Instagram. On my Instagram, I believe my Instagram username. Let me double check what it is, but I'm pretty sure it's Joshua Kemble. Yeah, it's Joshua Kemble, spelled like you see down there. But if you check that out on Instagram, you can check out the full size banner that I ordered for in store signings and upcoming conventions and stuff like that. And I will keep you guys notified as I book those things. But now that I'm vaccinated, I can actually start looking into it and trying to make that stuff happen, which I'm pretty excited about. Whew. And I'm also having coffee so that I can wake up a little bit. So my goal tonight, I may not get an entire page comped out, but my goal is going to be to try to at least get like, let's see here, halfway through the page. And what you saw me doing at the beginning of this too is whenever I start these roughs or thumbnails, I usually keep the previous pages underneath them so that I have like quick references to make sure that I'm being sequentially consistent. And I actually might want to leave that last panel up. And here we go. And then Frank was saying it's awesome to hear how Javi started an expo. Yeah, he's like a super inspiring guy, and I like Jav. He's a good dude, good human being. I like good human beings. And also just like people who like sincerely like if you talk to Javi, he just loves comics, which I think is the best too. Okay. So on to these pages and we'll see where this goes. This is going to be probably a close up of that face. I usually try to avoid like too many floating heads in a comic, but I do think in this case this might actually be worth kind of having a profile shot. And here we go, just kind of working through it. This is an interesting plot point in the story, kind of getting closer to the resolution of the story. Talking about some things that made me kind of re examine at the time my atheistic perspective and opened me up a little bit to the possibility of like, at least at this point, just thinking about Christianity. Um, and that's where I'm at in the story. So very fun times. And then Frank was saying he's about to do digital inks on the Texas Freeze comic. I'm fixed up some panels first. Nice. I think that's going to be a cool comic. Frank lives in Texas and is working on like a mini comic about kind of surviving the whole the electric grid, like basically shutting down. And I think that sounds like a really compelling story. All right, so here we go. My goal is to try to get this done fairly quickly because I am definitely pretty wiped. Like doing Artcasters, doing my full time day job, and then on top of that, like trying to kind of do it, this stream is pushing it. But once again, I want to make sure that I'm giving my comics the time they need to get done, and this is the time I have to work on them. So that is what I shall do. All right, so let's see here. I do want to show off that banner though. So maybe on a future stream, I'll kind of like pull it out and show it. But it's pretty cool. It's like it's about 8 feet tall, and it should look pretty good next to like a table. I'm gonna have a very minimal table. It's just basically gonna be selling my first comic, Numb, and then 2 stories, book one, and I'll probably have it like front faced, flat faced, and then have that banner. And then I'm thinking about over the weekend maybe getting some postcards that have like the plot and stuff printed on the back. And maybe, just maybe, I'll have like a little sticker of the cartoon. Uh, like, you guys will all know that guy. It's like this guy, you know? I think he's got like a little thing here. That version of me. Like, it'll probably be like a cartoon of that guy. Yeah, anyhow, that's my very, very quick, crappy sketch. But So that should be something I'll work on this weekend, is potentially ordering those things. And then I'm actually pretty excited because um, Friday I'm going to actually play music with my neighbor, which is pretty cool. It's like an opportunity that's just opened up. Okay, so now it's going to be starting to realize total depravity. Thanks, man. Thanks, Frank. Yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. It came out really good. The pricing for those things is way more fair than it used to be. It used to cost like hundreds of bucks just to get like a single banner. Um, but it's come down a lot in the years that I've been absent from conventioning. All right, so here I think this might reflect back to previous parts from the previous book. I'm trying to think of a way to do that. Let's do. And my goal is just to get to the halfway mark today, and we'll see where that kind of goes. Okay. I think I might actually just have this like reference kind of in the first comic. There's like a sequence. It starts off pretty heavy and talking about like suicidal ideation, and literally starts off with like me on a bridge, like considering jumping. And I think that might be a good time to kind of bring that imagery back, just to kind of bring people back to the beginning of the story. Um, and I think in that scene, I'm wearing a, let's see, parka, because you can't live in the Pacific Northwest without a good parka, honestly. Rains a lot up north for sure. So this is just going to be a very quick sketch to just kind of cite that that's what I'm probably going to be referencing. There's like a kind of grid pattern. And some tossing waves. I actually want to have this a little higher up. So these are just thumbnails to kind of work out the sequence of the story and try to make sure that I have a really good map going into the second book. From this point, like I'll gather photo reference and all sorts of other fun stuff to kind of try to get further along in the process. We'll see how it goes. Okay, and there's a lot of snow in this panel, so I'm gonna just add a little bit of snow. This is just referencing the sequence from like way earlier in the narrative. But as it comes to a close, I feel like you need kind of like bookends. And I do feel like throwbacks to like the intro of your story. It's a good old like plot device. It's kind of like if you're writing an essay, right? Like you want to kind of have your thesis reflect your conclusion, and a good conclusion will kind of pull elements from your thesis to kind of drive home the point. So that's my thinking on it, but who knows? I also just think like repetition brings a little bit of poetry to like whatever you're working on, be it like music or comics. So that is my thinking. So we'll see how this goes. So okay. Oh, and there's Corey. Hell yeah. How's it going, man? Wait, I was gonna add you, and I think I added you as you were adding you.
How you doing?
Beat, but pushing through it. How are you doing?
Same, except I was able to take a nap, so that helped.
Yeah, I actually had a nap today too before Artcasters. But there's something about like doing 2 shows in a row. I don't know. So feeling good, feeling productive. I was glad to have Hav on. Like he's a really inspiring dude. So.
Yeah, I caught a bit of that. That was cool.
Yeah, he's a good guy, you know. I was glad you hopped on like just in time to catch the douchebag.
Yeah, that guy was interesting.
So it's funny because I know like technically you shouldn't feed trolls, but so far what's been working for me is if you actually call out these cowards, like they tend to just kind of back away.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, meh, okay, I'll keep with that tactic unless it like fails.
Yeah, that was funny. Because he didn't even respond. He was just gone. He's like, all of a sudden.
Oh, I got a response. Crap, I don't know what to do.
Because I was about to. He was like, "Who gives you guys the authority?" And I was like, "Do you know who you're talking to?" Like,
I was gonna say, like, I don't feel like I have much authority, but like, Hav has had a like. Were you listening to this interview? He's had like a movie made out of his comic. Like, right. He organized like a really important comics festival that like has traveled the U.S.
Yeah, it's like, hey, random guy on the internet. There's actually quite a bit of authority in this video here.
Well, and my response was just like, who claimed authority? Like, I didn't see anybody at any point in the stream like claiming authority except the douchebag saying we were claiming authority.
Oh, that was funny.
I should have just been like, because we're your boss.
Yeah. You didn't get the message?
You didn't get the message? We own you. Yeah. Anyhow, that was funny. Frank even mentioned that at the top. He was like, can we expect Avenging Pineapple tonight?
I hope so.
Oh, I'm down, dude. I kind of have to. Yes, I know. It makes things interesting, honestly. Oh, man. How are you doing, man? Like, how's your kid? I like the tape cassette. What's this for? Is this same animation?
Yeah, this is the thing. Here, I'll show you. I've got some major parts of it done. I'll pull this up.
Is this exclusive just for me?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I've showed all of this.
This is a Joshua Kemble live stream exclusive. Seen here first, you guys. This is the music video. It was looking really cool at this point, so I'm kind of curious. But ooh,
here's the travel down the esophagus.
Oh, dude, I love how UPA that looks, man.
Yeah, it's. I've been enjoying. Emily's stuff because it does look very like old school UPA where they did the Telltale Heart and stuff. It's like the same type of look.
I love it.
So anyway, so there's that, and then I've got this at the beginning. So here's like the.
I saw a little bit. I didn't see this. I saw the whale though. I saw this part on your Instagram. But you guys are getting exclusives that you can only find here on my channel, or just wait and check it out on Corey's.
Right. So
but
this
it's
is
still
the
fun
scene.
to say exclusive.
This is the scene I'm doing next. Why wasn't that? Why isn't it showing up? Where'd it go?
You're making progress, man.
Yeah, I'm about a quarter of the way there. I've got to do some assets tonight, though. Why is this not playing? I don't know. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, there's a section where there's a tape and they push it in, but I'm not sure why some of this is playing and some of it isn't. I don't know what's going on. Anyway.
All right. Meanwhile, my goal tonight is just to get halfway through this thumbnail. And this is going to be like the montage of the previous book, kind of putting things together for people. And I'm kind of excited about it. This is the total depravity moment of the book.
Oh, okay.
So, kind of fundamental if you're talking about somebody finding faith.
All right, I got to get rid of the hand in the hand.
Kind of like a wake-up call, like, hey, I'm not really a good person. That moment where it's like, oh wait, I've been the hero, but I'm not a hero. Like
that's
finding.
Always pleasant.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's a good moment. Let's see here.
Yeah, that's going to be a little bit bigger. There we go. Oh man, I'm going back and forth on rulers. I'm kind of using them sometimes and kind of not using them other times.
And by rulers, you're referring to us, right? Because we're authorities.
Yes. Yes, the ruling authority in my life.
I think we should, the next stream we do, I think we should oh, nice. Frank said he guessed correctly about Hobbs' experience and was not expecting to get something, and he's going to get freebies from it. You see, Frank, you get rewarded for listening to our shows, but that's all like the kindness of hobby.
I missed a lot of that episode. What is?
I didn't understand the question. I think it's a Spanish thing that I don't get. Honestly, that's me. Maybe being stupid, but he asked, let me see if I can find it, because he just tweeted about it too. I saw the whole exchange. Oh, come on, where are you? He posted like a screenshot. Anyhow, he was like asking a preference of hobby, and I think it was of like 2 TV related things, I think.
Oh, okay.
Actually, Frank, explain it to us like stupid white guys, like what that was, because it felt like some insider stuff that I didn't understand, honestly. But it might be something really simple, and then if you can explain it to us, then we can feel like idiots. Come on, Frank.
Yeah, who wants to miss out on making people feel like idiots?
Yeah, I want to feel like an idiot. Come on, make me do it. But yeah, it was a really cool show. I was glad to have him on. So, but I can understand.
Seems like a cool dude.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
What movie and what comic? Because I only caught like the tail end of it the last few minutes.
El Muerto, the dead one. Yeah, and it's like a decent movie. You know, it's kind of like a B movie, but it's cool. And I mean, it's legit. Like he did have a film made. I actually like the comic more, but it's pretty fun. And he did kind of clue into the whole like Day of the Dead Aztec lore thing before it was like a big thing.
Yeah.
Because it was like the 90s, you know, when he was rocking that business. All right, so here I'm going to have. But yeah, there was some kind of wager placed on a question that I did not understand from Frank. And Javier told him, like, well, if you guess what my answer would be right, like, I'll give you free swag. And I think Frank guessed right.
Well, that's cool.
How are you hanging in there? Are you severely lacking sleep?
Still not really. Malia's breastfeeding, and so I do what I can, but I am not the desired parent. She doesn't really like me much because I don't do much for her.
Yeah, she's like, what do you got?
She's like, well, you have nothing for me. You can't feed me.
Yeah.
What? Can you give me back to the other lady? She feeds me, and I like that.
She's like, look, all I'm saying right now is I'm hungry. Okay, like that's what I've been saying for like hours. What are you gonna do about it? You're like, I can't.
I'm hungry, and every time you touch me, you change my diaper, and it's cold, and I don't like it. So, you know, let's get this over with and just give it to the lady that I like. But yeah, no, it's good.
Pretty awesome.
Yep.
I'm still happy for you guys.
Oh man, I gotta remember this reference, but I'm trying to figure out how it fit in. Oh yeah, so there's a class that I teach.
Oh, okay. Sorry, we got
What's that?
clarity. Javi,
Oh.
which Mexican comedians he preferred, and he said there was Chespirito, and he had a comedy show, and Capulina, and he also had a comedy show. So, see, it was something where I didn't get it because I'm white.
Gotcha.
It makes perfect sense. But that's cool. Now I'm curious about those shows. All right, sorry, where were you going, Corey?
Oh, I'm just saying I made an Old Testament joke today that might have got me in a little bit of trouble. But we were telling our students like, hey, listen, we tried to build this class in a way that would be, like totally open and let everybody kind of do what they want. And students don't want that. And so the guy I'm team teaching with, he goes, yeah, it's kind of like, the law of Moses, and so I was like, yeah, we came down from the mountain and then you guys are all having a big orgy. And so we went back up to the mountain, came back with some rules. and everybody was like, I don't know how I feel about that. And I was like, come on, guys, that's funny.
That's funny.
I don't care who you are. That's hilarious.
This is the weird thing about, so, I get the idea of like censorship and being prudent with your words and stuff. But the weird thing to me, like, about people who like censor stories that have like nudity or violence and they're Christians or like they profess to believe in the Bible.
Yeah.
It's just mystifying to me because I'm like, the Bible has so much violence and nudity and like language and poop jokes. Like, there's a bunch of stuff in the Bible that's pretty lewd. Not saying that we should be like walking around like promoting a bunch of lewd stuff, but it's just like, I think the Bible's a perfect example of like sometimes context like allows for things that we otherwise might be like, I don't know if that's okay, like, because the like context and the meaning matter.
Yep.
So that to me, I don't know. Maybe that's just my justification for having bad language in my comic.
Now you feel good about it.
Yeah, I feel really good about it. I feel like flipping off the world. So, that was a funny joke, though. It was a good one.
I thought so.
I think so. But you probably shouldn't listen to me.
Had a weird reaction though. It was funny. It's like, well, okay.
I don't know. Sometimes that can make things funnier though when you get a
Yeah.
weird reaction.
Okay, let's see.
Hmm.
I hate what rulers look like, but I don't want to draw straight lines.
I hate the way all rulers except us look. I think when we're rulers, I think we look awesome because we are authorities.
Different. Benevolent dictators.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Because we're the bosses. That's exactly what I tell my son every day too. I'm like, I am the boss. I am the authority.
That always goes together really well.
Yes, you will obey me. I do that at work too, where I'm just like, I am the boss. That's why you need to do what I say. It has nothing to do with like.
When you ask, why do I have to do this? Let me tell you why. Because I am in charge.
I love the question, like, who gave you the authority? Like, as if like there's somebody on the internet like handing badges to people. Like, you can talk about your experience making art, but you, sir, who's spent over a decade doing it professionally, cannot.
And that's the other. I wanted to be like, who gave you the authority to question their authority? That's what I want to know. Like, why do you feel like you have the right to ask that question?
He's like, because I have like an anonymous username, and so therefore I'm way braver than a person not speaking anonymously and backing up what they say with their actual track record.
That's good stuff.
The internet's funny sometimes.
It is fun.
I kind of understand. I mean, I think there is like some truth in the idea of like take what people say with a grain of salt because everybody's experience is different.
Yeah.
But, if I'm trying to learn about like stocks or something, I should probably listen to somebody who does do stocks or has done it for a while and maybe made some money doing it over like somebody who's just like some hobbyist.
You don't want to invest as a fun hobby.
I did for a second, and then I realized I'm not a stock guy.
I remember being like, "That's a weird move for Joshua Kemble."
Oh, dude, and I got out like
this is gonna go.
I got out right in time too because like everything.
Oh, it tanked. It tanked hard.
And most of what I did tanked. And don't get me wrong, like if I had held to it, maybe. There it is. Frank saying, who gave you the authority to question me? Who gives you the authority to ask about my authority to question your authority? It just ends up being this loop of like a who's on first bit that's just like way too meta to be funny.
I'll tell you right now, in crypto, now is either the best time to get in or the worst time to get in.
Yeah, it's either going
to completely tank, or it's low and going to go back up.
Yeah.
But the funny thing to me is I'm pretty sure it's tanking right now because a guy who owns a car company told bad jokes on a show that's irrelevant.
Yeah, I think that's what. Yeah, the thing that's weird is, Elon Musk is the richest guy in the world, I think, or is it Bezos? No, I think Musk actually beat him.
Really?
Something like that. He's up there. He's one of the wealthiest people on the planet.
Well, I mean, he's literally like, whether he's number one or not, he's literally so rich that
he's
just because he's curious, he's like, I'm gonna just, do what NASA does. I'm just gonna like put people into space because I've got the money to do it.
One of the funniest bits he did on SNL was him saying like, I'm a guy who like, he said, I'm a guy who makes electric cars and is trying to send people to Mars. Like, did you think I was going to be normal?
Right.
And that's a pretty fair point. Like,
yeah.
you think that's going to be like a normal dude? Like, I don't know much about him. I don't really follow finance or anything. I like Tesla. I like what they're doing. And I, in general, have liked Elon Musk. Like, he seems like an all right dude, but I'm sure he's got some skeletons in your closet. You don't get to like billions. In my opinion, I don't think anyone has billions without having done something.
Yeah. Well, I don't know much about his finances. I just know about him on Twitter, and he's right up there with the Donald. maybe not on the same playing field, but like just doing stuff where you're like, dude, really? Like there was this guy. There was some kids trapped in a well or something, or a soccer team trapped in. I can't remember what it was. It was something where there was like a deep hole and a bunch of people trapped down there. And there's this guy who's like,
The Chilean miner
yeah, was that it?
incident
I
from
think,
like
yeah.
years. I mean, this is like 7 years ago or
Is it
10
really that
years ago.
long ago?
So long. I was doing at the time I was doing editorial illustrations for this dude Lawrence Ross for The Root. And so we had an editorial comic and we did a couple riffs on the Chilean miner incident.
Well, he called like he's like, yeah, I'll build the thing and go get him, right? So he starts building this thing, and then there's this other guy who's like a spelunker, and he's like, yeah, I'll just go dive down there and help everybody out. And Elon goes, that guy's a pedophile. Like that was that was his response. I was like, wait, what? Everything like because he's gonna beat your robot to it, he's a pedophile? Like there's just stuff like that. And then he doubles down on it where it's like,
yeah, I think he's a very wealthy guy who actually kind of grew up like with a lot of internet culture. And like on the internet, like people resort to like calling somebody a pedophile like at the drop of a hat. Like that's just like a go-to insult online. But I think to anyone who's not familiar with like the seedier elements of the internet, that would be like, what? But yeah.
Well, I don't know if I'm familiar with the seedy elements of the internet or not, but it seemed weird and just like it's like that's a bizarre response to that.
Oh my goodness. I'm gonna see if I can find that thing for The Root that I did. It was called Vox Africanus. It ran for like years. Well, not for years, for a year. It was interesting doing like a weekly comic for a newspaper. Let's see, where is it? I just
In
wonder
a
what.
different life, I'd be doing political and I'd be doing like political cartoons, like Cartoon President.
Yeah, I did a bit of that, like during it was like Obama's first term. Where was it? Chilean miners. I just need to find it because now I'm just curious what our riff was on it. It was not all that deep, I don't think. Maybe I won't find it. Oh my goodness. We did a lot of these. Let's see. Oh, here it is. Okay, 2, 3. Okay, so let me pull this open.
Well, the guy sued him for defamation of character for that.
Oh my goodness. So this was the Chilean miner bit right here. We said.
Oh wait, hold on. Let me switch back to Tower. I would love to look at that, but your gigantic logo is in the way.
Oh, see, I was kind of leaving it up there till you would say something. Okay. So it's like all the Chilean miners, they're like, thank God you're here to save us. And it's like, oh no, amigo, I'm a Democrat. I was told I could find my approval ratings down here. Wait, where is this?
There you go.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh my goodness. Oh, it's because of the shortcut. So yeah. So that was our Chilean miner bit from back in the day.
Stuff.
That was not written by me, just illustrated by me. So I would have about an hour to knock those out.
Really?
Yeah, like maybe 4 at most, but those good times. Good times.
Dude, that's a turnaround time right there.
It's a good experience though. Lawrence is cool too. He's good. Yeah. Frank's like, Josh's huge logo. I'll show you a huge logo. At some point I'm gonna pull out that banner where I've got like my logo like that big. It's
yeah.
awesome.
I saw that. That looks cool, man.
Yeah, I think I feel a little more prepped for getting out there.
Yeah.
There's a couple more things I want to do. Not a ton because I don't have a complicated setup. It's just going to be 2 books. I think I'm going to have a postcard printed up that has the book cover and then on the back just has like a little bit of press release info and
Yeah.
how to order the book. So those are like giveaways. And then I might do a sticker with just like the 2 stories, like cartoon version, kid version of me, like it's just a floating head.
That'd be cool.
And then I think that might be it. So
You've got to do. You've got to do. You got to do a sticker of a melting face.
I mean, I could do a lot of stickers, but I just need simple stuff. I don't want to do a ton, but melting face would be cool. Maybe I could do like the melting kid, like the melting cartoon.
Yeah,
face.
I was thinking about that the other day, and I was like, I need to back off the melting face jokes because I don't want. Because like when people tease me about something, it gets in the back of my head, and the next time I do that thing, I'm like, oh, have I become the bug guy or whatever? You know what I mean?
I don't
like,
mind being the melting face guy.
Melting
Come on, like that's the best thing to be known as, the melting face guy. What did they call it when you rock out at a show?
Oh
you
yeah,
melt
no, that's
faces.
what I'm saying is like I want you to keep doing it because it's rad, and I don't want to be a deterrent.
Oh, you're not a deterrent. You're not a deterrent.
So just know every time
who
I
made
joke
you
about
an authority, Corey? That's like such a teenager thing to say too. Who made you the boss?
Yeah, you're not the boss of me.
Who says that? Someone who's being like, who is totally like talking to their boss. Like,
right.
You never say that to someone who's not an authority.
You say that to your teacher, your parents.
Yeah.
Your
Who died and made you teacher? The person who hired me as a teacher.
Right. It's like,
well,
yeah, you never say that to like a peer.
What makes you think you can boss me around? Well, because I control your grades, because like that's my job. like
because of the institutionalized relationship that we have right now. That's literally the labels that we both carry.
Little Josh and Corey stickers would be cool. We should make those, like repurpose some of those 48-hour art check.
Do we have I was thinking we should do some pixel art of a few of us.
I love it.
Do we have any of those? I feel like we haven't played this in a while. Where is it? Here it is. That was back in the day, man. That was old.
That brings me back. It's kind of crazy. We've been hanging online for like years. I just realized that with Scott too, where I'm like, holy crap, like we've been doing Artcasters for a long time. Like,
right.
I just like, it's funny how fast time goes. Like, you know, when you're a kid, it's like if you know somebody for like 3 years, you're like, I've known you for 3 years. We've known each other forever. And now it's like I have friends that go back like 30 something, 40, almost 40 years. So it's like 3 years isn't that long.
I explain this to my students all the time. I'm like, you guys think a semester is a really long time? You have no time at all.
Oh yeah.
If I give you a semester-long project, you better be cracking in that in week 2, or you're in trouble. You know, and I'm like, I know in your 20s, 3 months seems like an eternity, but like in your 40s, like 3 months is a blink of an eye. Like a year almost flies by and you don't even notice.
Yeah.
You know? And then they all look at me and I'm like, no, let me explain it this way. When I was a student and I got a speeding ticket for $50, I thought that was the end of everything. Like that was my food budget for the next month. Like I had nothing, right? And now that I have a little bit more money because I've got an income, like I get a speeding ticket for $50, I'm annoyed, but like I don't have anxiety over whether I'm going to eat or not. And it's because I've got more dollars in the bank.
The other thing I would say is like, dude, maybe this is just like a California thing, but it's like if you're only paying $50 for a speeding ticket, dude, you got away. Like that's very good. Because usually it's in the hundreds, you know.
You and Josh were teasing each other about which is better at the end of that show, and I was just sitting here quietly going, you guys have no idea how awesome Idaho is.
I don't know. $50
speeding tickets.
I I like some ideas of it. I have this like side of me that wants to just live out in the middle of nowhere.
Dude, I'm telling you, I never thought I would be the type of guy to be like, I'd like to live in the middle of nowhere. But now that I live in the middle of nowhere, dude, it's so rad.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see benefits. I don't know. I think what I'm going to do is ride it out in California a little longer. And then at some point, I'm just going to quit everything and buy like a property out in the middle of nowhere and in some state where I can still do it.
Yeah.
And then just do comics and that's it.
Dude, I tell you what, like,
and be like a weird curmudgeon. And at that point, I'll just become like now I'm very like for gun control, but at that point I'll just abandon that. So I'll just be the weird guy with a shotgun who draws cartoons all day.
okay.
People like knock on the door. I'll come to the door with the shotgun and be like, what do you want? They're like, oh, it's weird curmudgeon-y Kemble.
There's like, yeah.
Don't go to old man Kemble's. That guy's crazy.
So I've been.
They'll be like, did I tell you about how Steve Ditko got ripped off by Stan Lee? Get off my porch. Oh no, he's talking about Steve Ditko and Lee again.
Did I don't know how out of touch I am with like the rest of the US now because I've lived here for like over 10 years. But this seems normal to me, but I get the impression that like I bet if I didn't live here that would be really abnormal. You know how like kids go around and they like sell things for like raising money for their baseball team or whatever?
Yeah.
You know, they're like, yeah, cookie dough or popcorn or whatever. One of my friend's kids like called me up and was like, hi, Mr. Kerr, I'm raising money for the wrestling team, da 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 da. And I was like, okay, cool. What's the deal? And he's like, oh, well, you know, it's a raffle for like a 357 Magnum revolver from the local sports store. And like he went off on this big pitch on like several guns that they were giving away. And I was kind of like, I'm not super into guns. Like I'm kind of, I want to help out, but can I just give you some money and not enter into the raffle? You know? And I'm like, is that bizarre that like instead of like candy bars or popcorn, like the kids around here are like, hey, we are raffling off deadly weapons. Would you like some deadly weapons to support your local sports team?
Sorry guys, I gotta show this because we're officially like we're past midnight, so I gotta show Frank's lovely Night Gang logo there. Because right now, guess what time it is? It's Night Gang time. Who said so? The authorities. You know, there's a book by Scott. Oh my gosh, the wizard guy. I have to be the wizard.
Myers.
Yeah, Scott Meyer called The Authorities. It's really good.
Oh, I haven't read any of his other books.
It's goofy. There's like a guy who's obsessed with bees in it, which is really funny.
Obsessed with bees?
Yeah, he just like is like super obsessed with bees.
Okay. Just making sure I heard that right. Obsessed
Yeah.
with bees. Gotcha.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing. But he'll like talk about them like, man, you got to take bees seriously. Like that kind of thing. Anyway.
I work for an apiarist. I work with a guy who he knows so much about beekeeping that he teaches beekeeping courses as like a hobby. And like he's flown around occasionally to like set up hives and stuff. And that is one of those people that if you want to get some like kind of interesting deep dives into a subject that you probably wouldn't normally look up, just say the word bees around him and he'll like go off and it's like the most, I mean, I've just, you know, like several times I've been like, I wonder how much he really does know about bees. And I'll ask him something like super random and he will give like a very considered, well thought out, like well-researched opinion that is also backed by his experience. Like he's the type of guy who has an opinion on like which type of bees are the best type of bees for which climates. Apparently in Idaho, it's like Russian bees are like the best.
That's awesome. My son drew like a square bee. I think I showed it a couple
of
times
I saw that. That was cool.
That's going to be my album cover when I put out.
What is happening with your screen? It's like flashing.
Oh, that happens when I'm scrolling through. I'm trying to find, because this is going to pull back to some other stuff. There we go. That's what I was trying to find. I was trying to find this. Oh, come on.
Adam says one of the themes of what I'm working on.
Did you read his question that's on the screen?
Oh, do you guys believe that there should be authorities?
What do you think?
Should someone rule over someone else? Yeah, I do actually.
I think, to me, I think it's a shame we live in societies that need authority, but I think it's necessary. Like, meaning, like, I think we want to be in a world where we don't need authority, and I think that's the appeal for people of like pure libertarianism or pure socialism, is the idea that like we can somehow just kind of get along with no authority. But that's part of why I've never really bought into like pure libertarianism or pure socialism, is like the idea of an authorityless world is basically the strongest survive. So you're going to have authorities. At that point, it's just the biggest dude in the room, you know? So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, I
the
mean, if you
person
don't,
with the biggest weapon. Like,
yeah,
so
if you don't have an organized, like community-based authority, then you have physical threat authority.
yeah, but I don't think there's like some inherent, like I think authority is earned, and I also don't think of authority like the question's a little weird because it's saying someone rule over someone else, and I think there's like more of a servant leader kind of relationship with like most people in authority or using their authority well. So I actually
You
think,
have a very positive view of that then, because I don't feel like that at all.
yeah, I mean, like, to me, I think there's a lot of people who have no control over their own authority, and so they abuse it and become kind of a ruler type authority. Whereas I think like most strong leaders are more servant leaders. So
Oh, I
there's
agree. I
there's a
agree with
cost
what you're
to it.
saying, but I just feel like most of the time, what you're going to get is you're going to get somebody who abuses their power.
Yeah, which is why it's like I think you shouldn't have scenarios where you shouldn't in general, we shouldn't have a society that doesn't have checks and balances on our leaders, regardless of whether they're business leaders or government leaders or community leaders.
Yeah.
And so it's like it's a tough question, but I definitely think, I believe, like, and this is the thing about like being a Christian or whatever, but even before being a Christian, like I would look at the world and I just don't, I think at the time I was more of like a nihilist, because when I look at the world, like whether there's a God or not, like there's definitely something flawed with people where we have this idea of the way we should behave morally and we don't fill it. Like, like I think C.S. Lewis put it really well, where he was talking about it. If like an alien species like observed human beings, they would have no idea what our concept of morality is. Like, because we have all these laws and morals that we never follow. Like we don't think it's right to cut in line, but people cut in line all the time. So like if you're an alien and you're not like a human being yourself and you can't speak our language and you're just observing it, you'd be like, these people cut in line all the time, so they must not have any sort of laws about lines, you know? Like, I don't
Yeah.
know if it makes sense. Like, we have laws, but we just are really crappy at obeying our own laws. And even in nature, like outside of human beings, like, there's still like an alpha and pack relationship with animals. So it's like I definitely think the idea of like a leaderless society, it's pleasant, but it's Lord of the Flies. you know that's my thought. I don't know.
I thought you were going to go down like pickup artists when you're starting to talk about alpha packs and stuff.
Oh yeah. Well,
Alpha, beta. Oh, that's my favorite. My favorite thing within that community is like they start ranking themselves as like alpha, beta, and they're like, oh yeah, that's an alpha move, and I'm like, that is the weirdest thing to be proud of. That you're like a pack animal with very little reason that relies on like physical dominance to have any social hierarchy. Like that's such a strange flex to me.
it's a weird kind of like non-alpha move.
Right.
I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like I think a lot of like I don't know. It's yeah, it's interesting. But yeah, I definitely feel like yeah. But Frank makes a good point where he said, "Who made you the authority on authorities?" And then he brought up we need Judge Dredd, which is true. We do really need Judge Dredd. Which, by the way, that movie was awesome. Not the Stallone, but the one on Netflix later.
There's a Judge Dredd on Netflix. I haven't seen it.
It's basically The Raid, but just with Judge Dredd. It's great.
Cool.
It's cool. I mean, the premise is basically like Judge Dredd gets to a building that's full of a bunch of armed, crazy drug dealers on every level of the building, and he has to get to the top floor to fight the drug lord. And so he fights his way through every floor to get to the top. It's The Raid.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Which is also just pretty much like Die Hard. So it's a good premise. Where it's like, hey, you got to get to the top of the building to fight the bad guy. And there's going to be a lot of blood and fights on the way up. I kind of would love to do a comic like that with a simple premise where it's like you have to get in the building, get to the top, and fight your way through a million people.
Who did that? There was a guy who did a comic, and the layout of the comic was this giant tabloid-sized comic, but they worked their way through the windows of a skyscraper as the panels of the thing, but they were also fighting up the building to get to the.
That's cool.
It was a pretty ingenious setup. I can't remember.
Maybe it was Judge Dredd.
Yes, that's what it was. Did Bruce Lee invent the whole genre of like boss fighting up the thing? Like, wasn't that one Bruce Lee movie basically that?
Which one? Enter the Dragon?
I am embarrassed to say this. I've never actually seen any of them.
Oh my gosh. Enter the Dragon I used to watch ritualistically. It's like the best Bruce Lee film. There's a point in it where somebody's like talking about like he's like, do you feel ready? And he's like, I think I am. He's talking to like an apprentice. And he like slaps him and goes, don't think, feel. It is like a finger pointed away to the moon. Do not concentrate on the finger or you will miss all the heavenly glory. It's so good. That movie is so freaking like lovely, corny, just terrible, but awesome. Yeah.
I mean, it's not that as a kid I wasn't into that stuff. I think I've seen like just whenever they played on TV, like all the Van Damme movies, there's always something where he's.
Yeah, but
I don't remember. They all bleed together.
That is not the same.
Oh, I know, but
Van Damme's like a ballet dude.
The stuff that like was poor, watered down ripoffs of Bruce Lee. Like,
yeah, you dug it as a kid. Yeah.
I was like, I'd be into those, but I just don't think in my town they like streamed. They played any Bruce Lee movies on TV, or I definitely would have been in for it.
Yeah, the Bruce Lee was definitely not a TV thing. Like that was a like late night at a friend's house. They had the VHS tape, and then we watched it because it was a little violent and crazy.
See, I didn't know. We were pretty poor, and so the only thing that we had was like if it came on TV, we would tape it.
Yep,
like
we had that too.
My mom now buys more movies than anybody I've ever seen.
Isn't that weird when you're yeah.
She went for like the first like 30 years of marriage where they were just, broke high school. He was just a broke high school teacher. And now it's like every movie that she likes, she owns. And like for fun, she'll be like, hey, I saw this movie and thought of you. And she'll just like, you just get DVDs in the mail every once in a while. And you're like, wow, you're really making up for the last few decades.
All right. So that's your homework, Corey, is you have to watch Enter the Dragon.
Sounds good.
I think actually you should go down just the full rabbit hole of like bad kung fu because like kung fu flicks are awesome. Like they are so excellent.
I mean, I've seen a few. I'm not.
Oh yeah.
Unfamiliar, uninitiated, but
Legend of Drunken Master 2. You seen that?
No.
Okay.
It's like I can't even like with any real claim, like I mean Jackie Chan movies.
Yeah,
You
so
know, I've seen
that's the Jackie Chan movie. Like
right. I've
it's
seen bits and pieces of the Drunken Master one. I haven't seen
okay, you don't want
all
to
of
watch
them.
the first is cool, right? Second one is like it is legit like one of the best kung fu flicks you'll ever see. Like including like a crazy sword fight scene under a train. Like
Uh-huh.
that one's insane. And that's Jackie Chan just at his peak. Like I
Right.
feel like that movie is just it's crazy good. That has the whole like ladder fight sequence.
Oh yeah, I've seen that
Yeah.
referenced. Now I did go through a period of time where I was really into, I think, what do they call it? Fifth wave Chinese cinema.
Oh,
Like
nice.
Zhang Yimou and Zhang Zi,
Okay.
you know. And so they'd have like Nameless and Hero, and it was like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon came out, which I actually kind of think wasn't that great of a movie compared to like everything that came after it, but it was like the first one that hit the States really big. And then they made a bunch of really good ones after that. And they were kind of like, oh, this is like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. And I was like, no, it's good.
Yeah, dude, what was that one that came out after that with the chick who had the poison darts? Oh my gosh. I'm blanking it.
Was that the one where she's pretending to be blind?
Yes.
Uh, it's not Curse of the Golden Flower. It's that's Zhang Zi though,
Yeah.
who is awesome. Let me hold on. I'll look it up.
Yeah, because that one I'm like, I like that one has some of the coolest like that was definitely a rad one with like the rope work and stuff, you know.
Oh man, the cinematography on that was phenomenal.
I will say Crouching Tiger though, like I remember seeing that when I was fairly young in like an art house theater.
Oh, House of Flying Daggers.
Yeah. House of Flying Daggers. I love that movie.
That
Love
is
it.
a legit movie.
Dude, like seriously fun too. Just like
Yeah.
brilliant, like
Well,
cool,
like where
well
she's
shot.
fighting in the, I don't know if it's a brothel, but she's fighting in the place in that dress with the long sleeves, and there's
Yeah.
drums everywhere, and it's like literally like you're just sitting there and you are enthralled as this woman is throwing beans at drums. And it's a
Yeah.
long scene. I'm like, that is so good because that is such a boring premise. Could you imagine pitching that?
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
so what we're gonna do is she's special, right? And she shows up with some beans, and a bunch of guys surround her with some drums. And for about 15 minutes, she's gonna like throw beans at the drums and spin around.
I like that your pitch voice becomes like a very aged George Lucas.
I just feel like that's something George Lucas would do if he wasn't forced by his career to do nothing but Star Wars forever.
So yeah, Drunken Master 2 also has like a like the iconic because like Drunken Master 1's great, but it's like it's way lower budget. So like Drunken Master 2 was like like when they discovered Jackie Chan and kind of gave him like a huge budget to work with,
Okay.
but he was still young enough to just be like this just like a
Forced.
major threat. Like he was
Yeah.
just insanely, you know, skilled at that point. Um, but the whole premise of both Drunken Master films is like drunken boxing, right? Where it's like the guy's like an idiot, you know, at first, and then he's like an outcast to his dad, and you know, because he's like because the danger of drunken boxing is that you'll become an alcoholic, right? Because
Okay.
they drink a lot.
Right.
Um, but then, of course, like you know, he regains the family honor through like his mastery of drunken boxing or whatever. And but it's like great because like in the Drunken Master 2 when he comes back with honor, he's wearing like the family robe. And so it's one of the earlier kung fu flicks where they do like the robe work with the fight, you know? So it's like
Okay.
they're fighting and then like the robe kind of follows it. Like so it's
Yeah.
a lot of like um yeah, like uh yeah, the Shaolin movies are great. Like I really love kung fu flicks. they're great fun. But yeah, like those are things I actually discovered in my like teens and like junior high, because like I'd go over to friends' houses and we'd like go to a VHS store, like a Blockbuster or something, and just be like, this looks really bad. Let's rent it. And it's like the same time I also got into like really bad like 70s like blaxploitation flicks like Dolomite.
Uh-huh.
Just they're great. So corny, but oh dude, okay. I was starting to feel a little out of it, and then I realized, look at the time. It's like clockwork, Corey. I don't know why. On the hour every time. I need like a 20-second break.
All right. And I'm going to go roll out my back. I don't even know what time it is. 1:43.
Yes. Who gave you the authority? That's just going to be our new thing. I think that's what I'm going to do the next time we have a guest on Artcasters. Just like, that'll be like my third question. And who gives you the authority to talk about yourself? All right. Whoa, Corey, you're muted, I think.
So you should say it without any malice and total straight face. So yeah, thanks for coming on. This is great. So who gave you the authority? Where do you get off?
All right. I am excited though. I'm making progress, so I definitely will be back in about 20 seconds. See you guys. All right, so I need to know somebody who knows how to sculpt, because that's one thing I would like at my booth is like a little 3D version of my character, like going like that, like the young Josh character. And I do not know. I don't have a 3D printer, and I don't know a ton of sculptors. I'm gonna have to ask around. But that's something I would like to try to kind of do in like maybe a month or so, or maybe that'll just be a project just to make him. So I feel like I'm gonna have the long banner that'll like draw people to the table or whatever. I'm gonna have front faced books, like only two. So very slim table, like I'm talking like maybe a half table. So I'll have books laying down. You always want something flat and then something raised upright. But I actually want to do like I would love to have something to kind of draw people's attention, and maybe it's my character kind of going like that, just to draw people to the table. I think would be cool. Adam said, "I know some sculptors." See, this is why this is good. Let me see. Okay. So yeah, hook me up, Adam. Let me know the sculptors you know. Like message me on Facebook or something. Cause maybe I'll look into like commissioning one of those or something. Cause that'd be cool just to have, or at least I could get tips. Corey, what do you think of that? Like, so I'm gonna have like, I'm not gonna take up like a full table's worth of space. Like, and I'm mainly thinking for signings at first, like in-store signings. So I'm gonna have the banner, like the long, it's like 8 feet, so that'll draw attention. On the table, I'll have just literally like at most like a postcard, like a stack of postcards, probably like one sticker, and then it's gonna be a book front faced, like so it draws attention, and then flat. and then another book front faced and flat. But I was thinking like it would be so cool if I could somehow make like a 3D sculpture of the kid Josh character from Two Stories book 1, like kind of going like that. So it's like drawing people's eye to the table. Just so there's something on the table to like bring people a little closer. But I don't particularly like, I did do sculpture a little bit when I was like young. So it might be something I could build myself, but it's something I'm wondering about. Like, I got to kind of ask around, think about it.
I don't know much about it. I think I did my first sculpture earlier today.
Nice. What'd you
Helping
do?
my daughter out with a diorama that she's working on for school.
Cool. All right. Maybe your daughter could do the sculpture for me.
Maybe. Based on what I saw today, I don't know. It would draw attention. I don't know what would be the type of attention that you want.
It's like a bit. I miss doing these comics. Like, so I used to do these comics for this humor magazine called The Devastator back in the day.
Yeah, I remember you talking about that.
Yeah, one of my favorite bits that I did for them was like they had an episode that was like 007 themed, and my pitch that got accepted, because a lot of my pitches, because I was like pitching against like comedy writers who wrote for like Mad and Cracked, I'm like I didn't have a shot, you know. But this one got through, and I was so proud it did, because it was Q pitching James Bond like a 7th grader's science project, like because he got his like kids' homework mixed up with his own like files. And so like the premise is he's like pitching Bond like a baking soda volcano. It's like he's like, and then you add the baking soda, like, but he's doing it like he pitched like the new Audi or whatever, you know.
Right.
And then he just like keeps switching, and it just gets to like the worst like science experiments where it's like, and then you use the lemon and it makes the light bulb turn on. Like it's and then it just keeps like switching back to like Bond's like lack of reaction. And then of course it flashes forward to like Bond using the volcano against a villain and then getting murdered.
Right.
And then flashes to his kid's science project being awesome because she has like an Audi with like guns and stuff like coming out of it. And she's got like a first place award at this. Anyhow, that kind of reminded me of that. Like that could be a table. I have seen one person do the volcano thing at a convention. It was kind of obnoxious. It did draw people to their table, but it was like one of those things of like, I don't know if that like burnt more bridges than it made, because like everyone at the convention was like, dude, it's a comic convention. Like you're
right.
Like, come on.
Where do people go for Devastator stuff anymore? Not obviously that's one specifically, but like
I think
I feel like we're in an age where we should have some sort of outlet like that again.
Yeah, like I mean, you can still get issues, but they stopped doing comics. Like I don't know if there is like a good humor, because Mad rebooted and then they got canceled. So I don't know. I don't know.
Well, in print, right? They're still doing stuff, but just not in print. Or are they totally done?
I don't know. I know the print one was canceled. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they might actually be altogether canceled. And then I know like Cracked doesn't really do comics as much anymore. So
Cracked became like a meme factory and like witty, well-researched articles.
Yeah. Which is cool, but like I don't think there are a lot of there's the American Standard or the American Bystander, which still runs a lot of humor strips. But I feel like there's not really there's not really like, that's why it was so fun to do that, you know, because it was like it's pretty cool, and it drew a lot of like really pretty like well-known cartoonists too, because like there just weren't a lot of like paying gigs doing that, you know. So
yeah,
I feel like that would be fun to like I don't know. I mean, it's the problem is like it's one of those things of let's see here. Are you friends with Mike Fleming? Yes. So I might have to talk to Mike and see if he'd be down to do like a. I gotta find out like what he'd charge for that because that would be kind of cool. It'd be a one-off, but it'd just be cool to have. Yeah, I didn't think about
I think that'd be fun.
I just think that would work for the table, but maybe I'm overthinking. Maybe I'll just make like a cardboard cutout that I just glue. I don't know. I'm probably overthinking it. I need to book the gigs first, but I like to be prepared.
If you want to talk about overthinking it and spending too much money so that you can't make any, I know a guy who did just that. I think I could make you an introduction.
Yeah, I'm like the nice thing is like I'm not trying to sell a ton of products, so I think that's going to help me keep the cost down. And then Frank said that's who I was thinking of. So yeah, I'm gonna have to talk to Mike.
Oh,
Because I do think having something 3-dimensional helps, like on your table. You want something that's going to draw people to the table.
Yeah.
But I got to figure that out. Okay. I could also just get like a table banner, but yeah, I don't know.
I have one of those. I liked it. It was cool. It did stop some people, but I don't know. I think I'm in the wrong area to do interesting things.
I'm actually excited about it though, because I am expecting a lot of failed conventions and store signings where like nobody shows up. That's kind of the plan. But I'm also, I don't know. I want to talk to some local bars too, and just try to do like just a bar night where I can just be like, hey, do you mind if I like set up a table? You can say like, hey, there will be a guest artist here. I'll give you like this much percentage of what I sell. Just give me space here,
Yeah.
And I think there's some possible outlets for that.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Like Gaz did a cardboard cutout. He did like a like full out stand up. I'm thinking just like not that tall. Like I just want something to sit on the table because I have a like big thing that'll draw people. I just need. I don't know.
There's one comic book store within like 45 miles of where I am.
Nice.
And I bumped into the new owner the other day. And anyway, he seems like a cool guy. But I started to think as I left, I just like popped in because I had an appointment in that city. I was like, oh, I'll check out what's going on over here. Anyway, I like popped in and then I thought, dude, I should like hit that guy up to sell my stickers. So I think I'm gonna, because he was like pretty excited. He's done some covers for some comics. He's an artist himself. And I was like, I bet I could just say, hey, just put these out. I'll split it with you. I won't charge you until they sell or whatever.
I feel like it's worth a shot. I mean, like the worst you get is no. I was even thinking about maybe even going into like some local vape shops and weed shops like out here, because I was thinking about like that Zap Comics thing where like originally Zap, like I was reading a story and a lot of the early Zap comics, like I guess they contacted drug dealers in San Francisco.
Huh.
And they were like, hey, since you're selling pot anyway, you want to sell some mini comics? And they actually ended up selling like a crap load of comics that way. And I was like, I mean, I don't want to necessarily go through like drug dealers, but I was still like the hustle of it. I admire, even though it's like obviously I don't know if that would be the route I'd go, but it's opened my mind to like um that just thoughts of like potential like routes, you know.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, so Frank's kind of reading my mind on that. He was like, if you go for a standee, why don't you print out your kid character on cardstock and make your own? Yeah, I mean, it's not that hard to mount like a good print to like cardboard and then just finely cut it out. Like that's totally doable, you know. That's all they do on those like stands. Like that's one of the interesting things about packaging. Corey will know this too. It's like
Yeah,
when you do booth setups and stuff for like a company, it's shocking like how much stuff is actually just handmade.
right.
Like you always think it's a lot more, I don't know. I've almost any time I've gotten production stuff done, I always think it's a lot more complex than it is. And then when you see the manufacturing process, you're like, oh crap, like it, I could do that at home. Like, you know,
Right.
it's like, it's really weird how much is um, handmade, you know, like,
Yeah. Oh, it's just like people. It's just people with a bunch of razor blades.
yeah,
Oh,
for
okay.
sure. Or it's like a machine that they program to do the thing that a person can do. Like it's definitely, it's mind opening when you see that. So I'm trying
Yeah.
to think, oh, okay. Dude, I was going to say okay. I was going to talk about being crappy to my friends. And then I was like, what's a scene that has me being crappy to friends? And then I was like, wait a minute. Like, there's like all those Kid Josh stories. Those would be potentially experiencing that. So, sorry, you guys. It's going to be flashing again. So, I hope none of you have an aversion to strobe lights. How are you? How's the progress coming then? That sounded very Canadian. How's the progress then?
It's
How's it
fine.
going then, eh?
I don't know. It's slow going and boring, and I'm tired of it. But that's. I think I'm just describing my feelings about client work in general. So it's good, and kind of a dream client. So can't complain, but I do.
That's the nature of art. It's like when I'm doing personal work, I'm like, I could be getting paid to do something else. You know, like when I'm doing paid work, I'm like, I could be doing personal work. When I'm doing stuff for a really cool client, I'm like, oh, I can't wait to get back to my stuff. Then I get a bad client. I'm like, I missed a cool client. Like it's
I I don't know if I've grown out of it or what, but I have really gotten to the point where I just kind of like Scott, like I just don't want client work anymore. But it's hard to turn it down when you like need it. You need the money. Like it's like I know there's a need coming up. I'm getting all the like this is not a bill, from my insurance company that just saying just know that this is coming, but they're not actually hitting yet. And so I'm like, okay, I get it. I'm grateful for the work. I will not complain. Holy
it'll
crap.
get there.
What did I
Anticipation thing with bills is always a nightmare though. Like I'd rather just know. Just tell me what I owe. Like
I know.
just tell
It's
me what the hit's gonna be.
it really is quite awful.
It's like
Um
it's almost like if somebody's just standing behind you and they're like, "I'm gonna punch you, dude." And you're like, "Okay, when?" Like, come on,
yeah,
just
I'll
let me
punch you
know.
right
And
in
it's
the
like, no, no,
face.
no, just one of these days.
Oh, someday the punch is coming.
Yeah,
Okay. Can it
isn't
just
there like
come
a
though?
Charlie Brown bit like that? It's got to be.
Probably.
It must have been done.
It's not. That's not it. Okay. So the problem with setting up perspective is you have to care whether or not you're correct.
Do you?
I don't know. I just
It's so
don't.
funny that like we have David on um Artcasters quite often,
Yeah.
And I know David like pays attention to my Facebook every once in a while. Anytime I post a drawing, I'm like, I know that there's one person on my Facebook who definitely knows I flubbed the perspective here. It's like, it's just funny when like,
Jeez.
yeah. The downside of surrounding yourself with people who are better than you is they're gonna see when you're bullshitting.
Right.
And unfortunately, like I will admit to this extent, like I can full out do perspective,
Right.
It takes me a long time,
Yeah,
and quite often I just cheat the thing.
oh, right now I am like, I sketched this in rough perspective, and then I animated to the sketch, and everything works. And so I'm probably just not going to do perspective. I'm just gonna, I'm just going to turn this off. Everyone is going to pretend like that never happened. And
sounds good.
Yeah.
I don't even know what you're talking about. Pretend what happened.
Nothing happened. I'm just going to go back to using rulers. Everything's fine. Nothing to see here.
Nothing to see here. Move along.
Just, it's so off, though. Oh my gosh, it's so bad. All right, hold on.
These aren't the perspectives you're looking for.
Right. I'm trying to think. I think the only part of this that actually needs to be
just isometric it more. Like, don't, it's pretty much being done in like a tilted isometric, where like all of these lines are going to be this way, all of these lines are going to be that way or whatever.
Right.
So just like just even them out. Like that's the only issue.
That tape looks awful.
Instead of like because the tape just needs to be clear isometric perspective. The only thing throwing it off is the back needs to be the top section of the tape where the
yeah, no, I know. Here's the thing.
Just isometric it, man.
So for this shot, you never see the top of the tape. So it's covered like this.
Okay, then you're good.
And it goes in and out.
It.
But I want to be a real artist, Josh. That's
real artists do isometric all the flipping time, man.
I know.
Isometric's a good trick for animation too.
I know.
Maybe I'm crazy, but I feel like that might have actually been invented for animation.
Might have been what?
Like isometric perspective might have been something invented for something similar to animation, I would imagine.
Yeah, it's possible.
Because it's sort of ideal for it.
Yeah, I have a bunch of students right now making a video game, and they're like, we can't figure out the perspective. And I was like, well, don't make it work then. Like, just do it anyway. Like, you'd be surprised at how many cartoons and how many video games, like, it just doesn't work, but then nobody notices. So it's fine. You know, don't worry about it.
And again, just isometric's your friend, because that's just like, you can do varieties of isometric, but it's basically like all lines go this way or all lines go this way. And then you just stay consistent with that grid everywhere. And then everything like builds around that. It's pretty awesome.
I'm annoyed at myself.
Avoid the noid, sir.
Yeah, I'm just going to...
Oh, I just dated myself.
That's all right. We're all with you.
Are you?
We all got it.
Who made you the authority?
I made me the authority.
I was amazed by that.
Grade school.
Frank was saying, teach me, Josh, you can cheat perspective. Yeah, dude, look up isometric perspective online. It's not crazy complex. It's a look though, and it is a form of perspective. So technically you're not really cheating. You're just
isometric isn't cheating it.
Yeah. It still follows rules. It's just a lot simpler for fitting a figure in. However, there's certain ways you have to draw the figure if you're working in isometric. So thus
Yeah, you're always kind of about 6 feet above your figure on a 3/4.
Yeah. But you can do isometric, like you can even skew it and follow the same rules. Like it's just basically this grid is eternally going to go. There's no horizon line. Like it's just eternally that grid. And then this grid, your X and Y axis or whatever, are forever just a grid that just goes off into eternity.
Yeah.
Like, so you can do it like at a perfect like 45. You can do it at like a 30. Like you can kind of. The problem with bad perspective is when it looks like you're trying to have good perspective, and then that can be really bad. But in general, like most artists, honestly, cheat perspective. Like, I mean, you can even look in the Winsor McKay book where he's like a genius at perspective. There's still like on a lot of his sketches, he'll just rough out a grid. He'll kind of be like, okay, there's my horizon. I'm gonna have like a desk. I'm gonna have 2 vanishing points or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he won't. You know, it's not like every time he's getting out like the tacks and pinning it. However, he did probably at some point do the tack and the string. You know,
Right.
And do like legit perspective to get to the point where he could just wing it. I guess McKay would be a bad example of somebody cheating.
Yeah, I like how you bring up one of the most incredible perspective artists that's ever walked the face of the earth.
You know,
as an example who wings it.
Yeah, like speaking of people who like wing it on cross hatching, like there's this dude Albrecht Dürer, and you could just tell.
Yeah. Speaking of people who, you know, just kind of like do really quick and dirty loose line work, Art Adams, you should just kind of take a look at.
Yeah, for sure. Art Adams, like, you know, if you want to see somebody who cheats a crowd scene, wait.
I would love for somebody to come into this and start arguing with us.
I will say, Frank, just the perspective book, like Perspective for Comics, I think is what it's called. By
is amazing.
By David Chelsea, like the first one. Don't get the second yet, because that'll blow your brain.
The second one is just really fun.
Yes, and it's kind of David Chelsea just showing off.
Yeah, and I think he even says that. He's like, this book is just here if you want to go nuts. Is it the first one or the second one? I think it's the second one where he's like, let's spend 15 pages doing an exact spiral staircase in perspective that crosses the horizon line.
Yeah, and oh man, he gets into like how to map perspective over a globe. Like, right. Which I've actually seen his globes like in his studio. Like he actually does it. Like he maps out a sphere and then he'll do like a perfect drawing on the sphere, like a painting over it that's like in perfect perspective. So it looks like a reflective sphere that's reflecting which is insane. But yeah, I would just say, like, honestly, I would recommend David Chelsea's book though on perspective, like the first one. It's like a really thorough,
very good
breakdown, and it's easily digestible. And the cool thing is, it's made for people who read comics, which is great.
Yeah, almost every book on perspective out there reads like the worst VCR stereo hi-fi instructions from the late 70s, except for Chelsea's books where you get in there and you're like, oh, okay. Yeah. That's what it means. Because like most of them are actually made for like mechanical engineers or people that predate like the use of like AutoCAD.
I like it. Drawn to Life by Walt Stanchfield. I feel like I've read that book. Let me see. Drawn to Life.
I hate everything about this drawing.
Oh, cool. Oh, dude, yeah, that'll be a good book. Is that the guy who did all the animal drawings?
Who?
Walt Stanchfield. Is he the guy who did like the? I don't know. I know there's like a life drawing guy who worked for Disney, and I'm wondering if that's the guy who like they based a lot of the Jungle Book characters off of his like personal anatomical studies
Hmm.
because the guy just did like weird books for fun where he'd be like, I'm gonna like draw like a hippopotamus like doing ballet, and this is like before like Fantasia or anything. He just did this like where he's like, I'm gonna do perfect anatomy animals doing these weird behaviors, and then like a bunch of Disney artists like saw what the guy was working on and were like, this is amazing. We need to implement
Oh,
this.
that's cool.
I don't know if that's the guy though. Tell me if I'm wrong,
Well,
Adam. Maybe that's not him.
it looks like it. But I'll tell you another one. The guy who did Framed Ink, which is like my favorite book on composition. It is phenomenal. I forget the guy's name. Framed Ink. Marcos Mateo Mestre. Mestre? I don't know how to say his last name. But he's awesome. And then he also did a perspective book. So let me find his perspective book.
I like it.
Yeah, framed perspective.
Who gives him the authority?
I think he just took it. I think he just found it on the street and said, "This is my authority now." You can't do anything about it. But what I love about his stuff is it's like an inking style that I enjoy because it's a lot of brush. Like I love perspective for comic book artists, but it's very he doesn't do a lot of spot blacks or anything like that.
Yeah.
You know, it's very clean line work and everything. But like, let me just share my screen. Look at this guy's stuff. Have you seen Framed Ink, Josh?
I haven't, so now I'm really
dude, I might just send you a copy. It is one of my favorite books. So like he does this stuff, this type of thing, right? Where it's like loose and gestural. But he's doing this as an example of like how to do perspective correctly. But it feels like just awesome brushwork and like real. There's a lot of life in the inks.
Nice.
Anyway, I love his stuff.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, he does these little compositional drawings. Let me see if I can pull up a bigger
oh, that's it. Thank you, Adam. I had a feeling you'd know. So he was saying, I think you're thinking of Heinrich Clay. Let me Google that. Heinrich Clay. And that guy, I think you're right because I don't think this guy was like a master of perspective. He was like just a master of like life drawing. Okay. German illustrator. Dude, look that up.
Okay, real quick. So this is what I like that this guy does is you look down here and he does two different thumbnail sketches that are shape based and then like flow or motion based.
Dude, that's very cool.
And then
I also love that angle.
Oh, I know. I mean, because he does this by way of saying like, this is how you do it well in cinema, and then this is how you do it well in graphic novels. And so his books are like two parts. They're like, here's all the concepts as it relates to movies, and then the second part is here's all the same concepts as you would use them in comics.
I love it.
But
and I can already tell he's going to go over rule of thirds too, because that one from before was.
Anyway, he's great. If he didn't have the occasional bit of like nudity, I would have these as textbooks.
Yeah, that has to be tough because there's a lot of really essential art books that have nudity. Like that's kind of a part of art and studying the human form. So that's got to be a hard one to get around.
It's yeah, it is. And I mean mainly for me
'Cause
it's
even classic Disney stuff, like if you start looking like at the classic Disney animation books, they even did studies of nudes like moving just to like know how to draw
right.
a female form moving.
Yeah.
Um, so that's in a lot of Disney animation books. That's tough.
Well, I mean, and for me, I'm not teaching art classes, so
Oh yeah.
it
That's
helps a
just
little bit.
yeah, that's true. Okay, but that sounds like a hurdle.
It is.
Clay is one of those artists who's so good he just makes me feel really worthless as an artist. There are so many artists like that now. Like the older I get, the more artists that I look at and go, yeah. It's why you can't. I don't know. I think you can't go down the compare and despair route because there's just too many brilliant artists.
Yeah. Comparison is the thief of joy.
I mean, it's really good to do. Like, if you want to level up, and you're like, hey, where do I stack up, like on this level of skill? Have like an objective viewpoint of that.
Right.
But I think beyond that, like, yeah, it's you gotta kind of assess and then abandon.
Okay, I've got a book. Have I mentioned Big Magic to you yet?
Yes, you mentioned it last time, and I
Okay.
wrote it down as something I need to pick up. So
Um, the
the name,
reason,
I have to admit, like, kind of doesn't do it for me. But
what doesn't do it for you?
the name, because just as a skeptic, I just naturally am like, magic, huh? Isn't that terrible?
That makes sense.
But I have to say, like, just the fact that you recommended it, I wrote it down. I'm gonna scope it out.
Yeah.
So I actually think also it's funny because I just did, like, I've been on this soul kick lately. I'm throwing around a theory, Corey, and I'm not really sure how to verbalize it.
All
But
right.
I'm starting to realize what I like in art is soul. I think that's my jam in art.
What does that mean?
That's exactly what I need to work out a little better. I know it's true, but I need to figure out a way to verbalize it. It's that yeah, it's just like having a soul to it. Like, I don't know, there's like soulless art and then there's art with soul.
Okay.
And I need to figure out a way to verbalize that better. It's definitely tough because it's like talking about beauty too, where inevitably it gets into like well, what's beauty? Like,
Right.
is there true beauty? Like, what if I think like brick wall is beautiful? What if I think like rubble is beautiful? Like,
Well, then you'll be an excellent fine artist. You'll be making those really annoying photographic art arguments that I see in museums where it's like somebody who just doesn't know how to paint. So they go take pictures of concrete and then they wax eloquent about the beauty of random crap that no one cares about.
but then the weird thing is sometimes like concrete is really beautiful. Like, I have to say, like, there's been times where I've just like been walking on a street and been like, that is cool. Like, it's just yeah, but I don't know. I think somewhere, to me, I guess my point is like I think somewhere I think it's something you can sense about art, whether it has soul or not. And I
You're
feel like
getting
there's a lot of
dangerously
art
close
that
to
has
my
a lot of
least favorite topic, which is what is art?
yeah. Well, that's the thing, is like I'm not trying to transition to that topic. I just need to. I was just mainly saying that's kind of my jam lately, and I'm not sure how to verbalize that.
Yeah, that's cool.
But I'm starting to pin down. I think it's the, like, it has to have soul, like the music or art, or like honestly just people. Like, I just feel like the second you lose your soul, it gets less interesting. Anyhow, I don't know. Who knows? But I think we've all seen like soulless animation or soulless, like read a soulless comic that's like really well executed, but you're just like, yeah, but there's just like not, I think it ties into authenticity too, which is another one of those like, how do you grab that word? Like, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to mention authenticity just because it sounds like that's kind of what you're describing. But it's one of those things. I tell this story all the time. But have I told you the story about when I went to the conference where they were giving a literal definition of like how to, like the formula of how to appear authentic? It's like, am I the only one in the room right now that gets the irony of what is going on here? Some like PhD standing at the top at the beginning of the room. I studied how people feel about authenticity, and let me tell you what the formula for appearing authentic is. And I was like, holy crap, this is the weirdest thing I've heard all day.
Yeah, see, Adam was saying like soul like integrity. No, like soul. That's the part that's tough. Like but like integrity is another word that's hard to grasp, right? Like, what do you mean by like what is integrity? Can you measure it? Like it's tough when it comes to like words that sound subjective, even though there might be objective truths behind them. It's just a hard thing to pin down and have a viable conversation. Because even beauty, right? It's like I don't know. It's funny. I was reading the Winsor McCay book, right?
Yeah.
And I think because of the time era or something, like all these people, there's all these quotes of these people who are just like, Winsor McCay's wife was this gorgeous vixen, and then the weird thing is, I don't know. I saw pictures of her and I was like, this does not fit like the modern standard of beauty at all, because most people in our day and age would consider that person overweight. And
right.
I'm not even trying to say anything against anyone who's overweight or anything. It's just like it wouldn't fit like what people consider the like standard of beauty, which might be stupid, but point being like it's changed a bit. So yeah, like heart is kind of like it, but I don't know, there's something different about soul. Like, it's like a music thing where it's like not soul music, but like soul music was named soul music because it had soul to it, right? Like it's just something about yeah, it's just like the soul of the person. Yeah. So it does tie into integrity and heart and authenticity. It's just a little broader, I think. But it might be too evasive to use. That's why I'm like,
I have a good definition for you.
yeah.
Anything that has soul is something that you like.
Yeah, and anything I don't like doesn't have soul.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
And
Problem
you know
solved.
why? Because I'm the authority. That's right.
The authority. You are the arbiter of soul. Oh,
I can't. I don't know if I can make the call as to whether something has soul, but I think it's definitely one of those things when it's not there.
Because you like it or not?
Not me.
I'm just messing with you. That's why, like, I used to try to define.
So I was met by the authorities of beauty and soul, and they gave me a badge. That's why.
Yeah.
That's right. Corey and I are licensed soul beauty arbiters.
Yes.
We're truth arbiters. We've been given a degree in truth arbitry. Adam, I don't know if I can. I got to think through it. Yeah, I mean, I think that is close. Like humanity is definitely part of it, right? Like I feel like that's something unique to human beings, It's your life and your essence flowing through your art. Exactly. I don't know. It's something I'm thinking about. I can't pin it down yet. I don't want to give examples either because it's something I'm thinking out loud about and I have no idea, but I think I'm close to something on that. Just not quite sure what it is. I'm trying to think of an example of something without soul, because that might actually be easier. Which is like, I think that might be why we avoid discussions like this, because it's a long, crazy thing.
Well, that and you know, knowing you, you don't like to make unsubstantiated comments. You know, like you're pretty into like well researched and well defined substantiation of things.
Yeah.
And so I'm teasing you because I really do think your definition of soul is stuff that you like. But I know that you hate that concept because, where's the scientific reasoning and classification of that? Where's the intellectual?
Well, no, I actually would kind of agree with that, although I think there might be stuff I dislike that has soul. But I definitely think there's not much that I like that doesn't have soul. There's some soulless stuff I like.
Okay, so give me that. That'd be interesting.
Okay, so like Mini Force, it's like a TV show that my son's really into,
Yeah.
and it's basically like a bunch of corporate dudes. I don't know. I think it's like Korean, but it's basically like a bunch of guys where like Power Rangers sells well. Chibi animals are popular. Voltron sold well. Like all these different cartoons with like these mechas and these mechs and kaiju and stuff, like they all sold well. So what we're gonna do is put that all in a blender, and then we're gonna make Mini Force. And it is totally soulless, but it's super fun. Yeah, Adam's got it down. Like that's what I'm getting at, is like, I don't know if I can pin down, but it is hard if you start, like Corey was very well pointing out. I'm definitely walking on shaky ground here, because you can't like define. It's a weak position to start by like defining something by what it is not. Like that's just
Like your
weak ass
favorite
position.
clients. I don't know
Yeah.
what I want, but I'll know it when I see it.
Yeah.
I know what I don't want, and I don't want the thing I just paid you to make.
But I will admit, like, I think I said that at the top too. It's like for my own preferences, I definitely think trying to pin down like what I really am into in art and what I'm not. And I do think soul has something to do with it. So it definitely would have something to do with stuff I don't like and do like.
Right.
But I wouldn't rule out something with soul that I may not be my jam, Like probably about most modern country music might have some soul, but I probably won't like it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I gotta think on that one. Probably
I'll
a little
tell
more
you,
of a Greg online.
have you watched Bluey?
Bluey.
Oh, you haven't watched Bluey? Ben might have aged out of it, but like I love it and my 11-year-old loves it, but it's really like a kid's show.
Okay.
Like a younger kid's show. But it is one of the few kids shows that I think has real soul. It's like actual parenting. And it's the creators say, we didn't try to make a show. We tried to make a show that was like how kids actually play rather than how adults think kids play.
Oh, I like it.
And it's these dogs. It's a family of blue heelers. And it's one of the best shows on television. I love it. It's so good.
I actually think there's a lot of kids entertainment that has soul. Like the Muppets and Sesame Street has a lot of soul.
Sesame Street and the Muppets, yeah, they're pretty rad.
Dude, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood is like full of soul, dude. Like that is crazy. Like, I don't know.
That's some old school stuff though.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, trying to think of new stuff. You know what's cool? On PBS, there's a show called like Luna, the Moon, and it's by the guy who did Rocco's Modern Life back in the day.
Oh, really?
And it's so good, and it's funny because I instantly recognize the style, because that guy's art, his animation style is just instantly recognizable. I was like, that reminds me of Rocco's Modern Life. And then I looked it up and it was. That's really great. Maurice Sendak's work has soul for sure. But there's a lot of kids' books, man. Like, so speaking of Sesame Street having soul, there's a whole bunch of Sesame Street ancillary properties, like kids' books, that are just totally just products. Like, I don't feel like there's like life to them, you know? So I don't know. It's weird. Yeah. Could be just I think I've opened Pandora's box on that one. I will reclose that box and rethink about it. Got to think about it longer.
I just enjoy teasing you because it's one of those things where like I get what you're saying and I totally agree with it, but I've gone down the rabbit hole of like trying to define and describe like why I like a book or why I like a movie, or to help people predict whether I'm going to like something or not. And it's a fruitless effort because I like all kinds of things for all kinds of different reasons, and it's really hard to pin down.
Yeah, 100%.
Oh my gosh, Josh, I am spending way too much time. This is literally going to be on the screen for 3 seconds.
Okay.
I'm not even exaggerating. Straight up 3 seconds.
I get it.
It's like in comics, you're like, oh man, people are only going to look at this panel for like a second or 3 seconds. But like in animation, you literally know the actual amount of time that they're going to look at.
Yeah, exactly.
Because some people will be like, oh man, that panel is beautiful. I'm going to look at that for a moment, right? Very few people rewind in animation.
So Frank just said it perfectly, the Sesame Street thing I was trying to articulate. He said Sesame Street has soul, but Sesame Street on Ice has no soul. Thank you. Although the people performing in Sesame Street, yeah, it is hard. I hate the fact, I kind of enjoy the ambiguity of it and the subjectivity of it, and the fact that I do think we're grasping at something that is objective. We're just bad at finding the objective truth of it. But I think there is objective truth when it comes to beauty. It's just like we're just really bad at finding it.
You really do think there's objective truth when it comes to beauty?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot of subjectivity to it, but it doesn't mean there aren't things that are objectively beautiful. I would totally take that stance. I'm like a Dave Hickey guy in that sense. Like, I like the idea of it, but it's indefensible. Like, that's the problem, you know. Like a lot of like
all that. Wait, I'm trying to wrap my brain around this.
Yeah,
you're saying that there are objective truths that are objectively indefensible.
Yes.
Okay.
But it's kind of like they're like I think therefore I am kind of propositions. Like I think they're truths we know, but we just can't. Like you know, there's a point where you just kind of have to. Like with logic, there are certain things where you have to like either start from the premise of like sort of there being an objective reality to things or not. And with beauty, I draw the line very flexibly. Like I do think there's a lot of subjectivity to what can be considered beautiful. But then I do think there's like something that's objectively beautiful, for sure. I think there is objective beauty. But I don't think you can prove it.
But
I think there's a lot of proofs and
make it not objective. Isn't it subjective if it can't be proved?
No. I mean, so I would almost view it as like, this is me thinking out loud here, because I don't think it's defensible, but I think it's true. In the same way that like, so an inch is an arbitrary statement. Like an inch is a word we invented. Like the space that an inch was a chosen distance that we measured, and we're like, this will be an inch.
Yes, but then we
to an extent, it's subjective, but the second you put it on a ruler, it's an objective reality that's still, like, if you get down to its core, is like completely indefensible.
But an inch, it actually has a scientific measurement.
Yeah, but like the measurement itself is a subjective creation. That's what I'm getting at.
It's a
I'm not
subjective
disagreeing.
creation, but it has objective measurement because we've
Exactly.
agreed to it.
Thank you.
No, that doesn't prove your point.
No, I'm saying that I'm not proving a point. I'm saying that my view on beauty is that I think it's something similar to like measurement, where I think there is a truth objectively to it, but I do think it does start at like a subjective. It's kind of weird, and I think there's still subjectivity to it, like outside of that.
Okay.
But I think much like once stated, an inch doesn't shift, right? But before it was stated, like an inch doesn't mean anything. But once it's stated, it doesn't shift. I think beauty can function in that way.
You just literally gave an example of somebody who is deemed beautiful that wouldn't measure up to modern beauty standards.
Oh yeah,
So,
but like I don't think that's the kind of thing that's objective beauty. Like I think there are objective beauties, but I don't think that has to do with necessarily like human beings, you know, like how we look or whatever. I
okay.
think in our perceptions for sure. That's what I mean by like I think there are certain objective beauties. Like I think there is objective beauty out there. But I don't think this, like that's, I guess what I was trying to say is like I think it allows for subjectivity as well. Like I think there are tons of things we find subjectively beautiful, you know. But I do think there are some things that might be actually just purely objectively beautiful.
Do you have an example
Of objective beauty?
of something that would be objectively beautiful?
The universe, I think, might actually be one of them.
Like as a concept or as a visual?
As a visual.
Okay.
I mean, I would
I mean, I find it
really,
beautiful, but I'm trying to.
I would find it absurd if like I met somebody who was claiming that like a starry night sky on a clear day that's not in like polluted, you know, area is not beautiful. I would
Pollution
question
actually
that person's
causes
capability of measuring beauty.
pollution actually causes some pretty beautiful sunsets and things.
Not, yeah, sunsets, but like in LA, you're not going to see like stars in the sky. Whereas where I live, like at night, you see like all the stars, which is awesome. You can even see like swirls in the Milky Way. And where you live, you probably get like just, I mean, I can't imagine what the sky looks like in Idaho. I bet it's gorgeous.
Yeah, there's almost no light pollution here
Yeah.
in the evening, so it's pretty crazy.
So I feel like there are things that are beautiful that would remain beautiful, like regardless of the viewer. And I think if the viewer doesn't see those as beautiful, like there might actually be something tainted about the viewer. Like maybe they don't have eyesight, you know?
Okay. Yeah. All right.
So that's what I mean by objective. But I think there's things like that, like, yeah, Adam makes a good point that are, man, everybody in the chats is doing a better job articulating. Adam was saying it's like pain. Pain is experienced subjectively, but it's objectively true that pain occurs. But it's indefensible, Adam, and like that's a big philosophical one too. Actually, like the inch is easier, like the arbitrariness of like measurement is an easier defense than like subjective experience of like pain or trauma or even perception. That's why like there's the whole I think therefore I am thing that literally was like that was kind of like a bunch of deep thinkers just acknowledging like we can't really prove we are, but like in order to have any rational discussion we have to just sort of go, well, we think therefore we are, and then kind of move from there. Because anything beyond that just gets into like this crazy it's indefensible to say I think therefore I am, but it's a premise you have to start from to have rational conversation. Unfortunately, the pain thing is one of those too. That's tough because, like, scientifically, you kind of can prove pain.
Well, I mean, you can. Yeah, pain is interesting because you. Frank thought you said squirrels in the Milky Way. I do think squirrels in the Milky Way are objectively beautiful.
I think squirrels are probably prettier than swirls. The squirrels in the Milky Way. That's wow. Now we're getting to, like, I should prove they aren't there. That's the age old criticism of theology is like I'm forgetting, was it Russell or something? I forget who, but like a very old atheist made the argument of the claim of if you claim that, like, that there's a cup of tea or a teapot like floating out and orbiting Jupiter, the onus is not on the person hearing that claim to prove that you're wrong. Like, you're making a strange claim about a teapot out in the middle of nowhere. Like, the onus is on you. The burden of proof is on you, right? Same with my claim of squirrels in the Milky Way. I can't put that burden of proof on you guys. I have to prove the squirrels' existence in the Milky Way. Oh, it was Russell. For Bertrand Russell's teapot, yeah. But yeah, anyhow, I don't know. What do you think about pain, beauty? Do you think there's absolute truth? Corey,
well, I'm religious, so I believe that God's perception of things is absolute truth. That's as God perceives things, that is absolute truth. And as we align our will and our perception with his, we come closer to truth.
So it kind of aligns with what I'm saying.
Well, yeah, but I mean, if you're having an actual religious discussion, then yeah, I do believe in objectivity as it aligns with God's knowledge of things. What God knows to be true is true, and what God believes is beautiful is beautiful.
There we go. So that's the tough part, but that's still indefensible. Right. I love it. I don't know. To me, I'm fascinated by those things. But what cracks me up is somebody who would criticize, like, the idea of, like, beauty. There's objective beauty. At the same time, will make an objective statement about an impossible to prove beyond subjective reality. It's very strange. We're on shakier ground. I think most human beings are on shakier logical ground than we realize. Is my point. So yeah. my point in this whole rant was just basically question reality. Don't trust anything. Don't believe anything.
We are in a simulation. Nothing is real.
We're in a simulacra.
But with pain is interesting, right? Because actual scientific pain is specific chemicals reacting to specific neuroreceptors and, specific signals sent to the brain. We interpret that as pain, but, like, yeah, I don't know. I kind of go with the Princess Bride, life is pain, Highness. Anybody who's telling you otherwise is selling something.
What's funny, though, is, like, okay, so pain is a really good one to bring up because it is so bizarre. And if you talk to, like, a doctor or a nurse, or, like, honestly, like, you go through a birth scenario, like, like when my wife was giving birth or whatever, I asked about the pain chart because they're constantly using that.
It's okay. The pain chart is emojis.
Yeah, it is. They make it cute. They do, like, smiley faces, teary faces, like.
But yeah, I had the same conversation like a couple of weeks ago with the nurse, and she was like, "I know it's weird and it's not scientific, but, like, I've actually found those different, like, little cartoon faces to be a really accurate description of how people feel."
And here's the thing. The 1 to 10 scale isn't scientific either. Like, doctors depend on the patient to know the level of pain. It's not like they have like pain down to a complete mathematical equation where they're like, oh yes, this is going to work. I mean, that's half of why like anesthetics, like anesthesiologists just knock you out. Like they just take you to a point where like hardly anyone in their right mind who's got any sensitivity at all is going to feel what they're having. And even then they'll mismeasure it. Like anesthetics are actually one of the most dangerous parts of like an operation, because it's not like as hard of a science as other things. Because pain is really subjective, even though there's receptors, levels of pain, and the way people feel pain is like so experiential. It's hard for them to measure. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
Although they do know there's certain parts, like, I mean, obviously there are receptors that like, if that's cut, like you're not going to feel pain, like it's,
and if that lights up on certain tests, then
mm-hmm.
someone's experiencing pain.
But the level of pain, like the kind of measurements of it and stuff, it's interesting. All right, so I'm gonna disappear for 10 seconds. I think I've got another, like maybe 10, maybe one more panel in me before I call it. How you hanging in there, Corey?
Oh, I've got a few hours left.
Oh wow. Okay, so you're in it for the haul.
Yeah, I took a fairly significant nap because I don't have to get up in the morning. So,
all right. Well, maybe I'll try to press through and finish this page. So give me 2 seconds. I'll be right back.
Yeah, don't do it on my account, but I'll be here.
Ooh. Okay, I'll be right back.
Actually, I'm gonna do the same. My back hurts. So. I'll be back. I hate the stereo that I drew. It's awful.
Whew. What's up to? Oh, dude, this is getting interesting. All right, Frank. I'm glad you got a page done. We will see you. Adam, you brought up some really good theological questions. Is God a subject or an object? I think it would be hard to say. I think that's a tough one, because I think if you hypothesize that there is actually like a real creator of the engine or whatever, like I guess it would be like, is Ford an automobile? Like, I don't know if Ford is an automobile. I don't know if that's a good example, but that's kind of how I view it, where it's like Ford is just the maker of the automobile, right? Like, I don't know. So I think technically, like, if God is, like if God always was, if there's just like a being that is eternal, that just always is, ever present, like was, is, and will be, then I think like that would have to be like both the object and subject, which is kind of weird. But you brought up a really good question where you're saying, um, if something is based on the view of a being, even God, I would consider that subjective. That's true, except if that being is beyond like what our comprehension of a being is. I don't know if that makes sense. like for instance, subjectivity, like in our experience, has to do with time, but it's like if you're outside of time, like if you actually didn't experience entropy, your whole viewpoint would probably instantly become like more objective than subjective. It's kind of crazy. It's a heavy conversation to have at 2 a.m, but it is an interesting thought. But I love what you brought up about the flood, because that's one of the more like weird theological ones where it's like there is a point in the Old Testament where God literally says, "I wish I had never made man," and that's a heavy one. I mean, there's like answers to that, like I think apologetic attempts at answering that, but it's still problematic. Like that is a tough one. Let's see here. All right, so let's see here. All right, so here we go. I got to work this out. So this is going to be the weight pressed harder. Where was the weight pressing panel? So I don't think this is necessarily an adequate answer to that, what you brought up, Adam, but this is one of the ones I've heard on that flood thing, right? So, and this is like also touches on like the more like weighty like issue of like original sin or whatever. Like there's a big theological quandary with that, right? Where it's like if an all-knowing God creates man, like how does he not, like how does a loving God like create man knowing full well like with what is it, kind of like with full powers of predestination, like being able to like see the future. How would like a perfect God create like an imperfect being, right? And then why would they allow that? And then why would they allow it to get to a point where where like it's like you've literally are like wishing you had never made that creation, right? Like that seems like imperfection. So the thing I've heard that I think tackles that a little bit, but it, like once again, I think that's definitely a question that like is not resolved. It's like the problem of pain. Like that's definitely one of those ones where that's a hard one for like for like anybody I think of faith to like kind of answer. But anyhow, so let me kind of try to answer it with like the best way I can, where it's like I feel like there's windows. Like I definitely feel like with belief in general, like in the supernatural, you kind of need a supernatural um, event, I think, in order to believe it. Like I don't think like outright you're going to be logicked your way into it. That's not to cop out from answering. It's just like like for me overall, like the most convincing thing is just like um that like I personally experienced like what I think was the Holy Spirit. And it was a very like subjective experience of what I think was an objective truth. But anyhow, that all that being said, like let me try to kind of figure a way to word this. Okay, so like with the like God and creating sin thing, the answer that I've heard that I found like the most close to kind of giving a window into it is the idea of like if like in order to have love, it seems like most cultural understandings of love like have to do with like that not being a forced thing. Um and so like yeah, exactly, Adam. That's kind of where I'm getting. Like so in order to allow for people to like actually have love, like they have to have choice and free will, and in order to have choice and free will that actually matters, you have to allow people to choose. Like there needs to be an opposite choice that may not be a choice you'd agree with. um, so for like I think that has something to do with it, and I think that's a window into it. I don't think it's a fully adequate answer, but I feel like that's it sounds like you already know that one, Adam. But yeah, that's kind of my take on it. um, Yeah, so if God like controlled everyone like robots, it would be like a fake universe. Yeah. And then it's not really real love. Like for instance, like my wife, I enjoy my relationship with my wife, but if I found out like tomorrow that like the only reason my wife was like with me was like she felt forced or scared or like I don't think I'd be happy in that relationship because it's not like love. That's like a different thing. Um because so like I'm happiest when I know that my wife is happy and has chosen me, not that like she's forced to. um and I feel like that has something to do with love. Um so yeah, but that's an interesting question. I don't know, how do you answer that one, Corey, with like the he brought up a really good one. He said, if God can have regrets and flood the world, it seems that his view is subjective.
Yeah, I think that's probably a mistranslation. This is probably where I'm going to disagree fairly heavily with a lot of people because I think that there's God being a perfect person isn't going to make mistakes. So I think the flood was an act of mercy for the billions of children that came after the flood because he doesn't want to damn people. And so if you're born into a certain situation, to me, it seems like the world got to the point where no one would have the opportunity to choose good or evil. They would just be raised evil. And so he was like, well, gotta give my children the best shot. So,
Yeah, and I definitely think I think I'd actually kind of agree with that.
right.
I think that's kind of what Adam was saying, but I don't think that also. I guess what I'm getting at is like I think with God it's interesting because I think it can be both subject and object. Like I think that has something to me. I think it has something to do with and this is just me thinking out loud, but it's like I think that has something to do with like sort of existing eternally. Like um I think that like when you're outside of entropy, um your objectivity and subjectivity, I think, kind of blend, because I do think subjectivity has a lot to do with limited perspective. Like, part of what makes you subjective is like if you can make choices, though, it doesn't necessarily mean you're subjective, and that's the part that's weird.
Okay, so I believe
So
God can make choices, right?
yeah, I do too.
But I believe he will always make the perfect, correct, righteous choice.
Yes, I agree with that. And
Right.
and what I'm getting at, I guess I'm just trying to kind of get into the mechanics of like why I think that, outside of just biblically. Like I literally think part
Well,
of
if you
the
look at
thing
it,
that causes subjectivity, right? Like, what makes something subjective? It's like like the human condition, right? Is like that we all are subjectively kind of trapped. Like, so, like, I can be really close friends with Corey, and I can talk to Corey all the time, and I can kind of get to know him better. So I can kind of get a better sense than like a lot of people, if like he's upset or if he's thinking something. I can never actually get into Corey's head. Like, meaning, there's no point of reality where I can like jump out of my brain and hop into Corey's brain for like a day and be like, because I'm subjectively stuck in my own reality. God isn't limited by that. So I guess what I'm getting at is like, the mistake of saying like God is subjective would be like assuming that God is like man, and that's not necessarily
well,
the
let's
case.
let's take it another way.
Yeah.
All knowledge, right? Being having all power and all knowledge
Yeah.
eliminates subjectivity, because I think
Exactly.
subjectivity comes through a lack of data, right?
Totally.
If there's something about it that can't be comprehended by a mortal being, then it's up to an opinion, right?
Yep.
But if I know everything that there is to know, then I think that my opinion is objective, because I have all knowledge. And
Yeah.
so what I
And
think
if you go one,
actually,
yeah.
yeah. Well, and then here's an interesting, if you take it into like quantum physics,
Yeah.
water at any given point could be lava. It just doesn't. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like water could just defy gravity and start going up, but it just doesn't. And so we know that by certain natural laws, water behaves and acts a specific way, but it has within it the potential, not the likelihood, but the potential to break those laws. And I kind of feel the same way with God. I believe that God has the potential to break those laws, but he never will, because he has choice.
Yeah. And I also think I love that, actually. The other thing that is key, like, to like at least the Christian viewpoint of God, is to realize that like God himself is truth. So like all truth emanates from God. So like if we're trying to assess truth, like what's subjective or what's objective, like from a Christian perspective, like the ultimate absolute objective truth starts with God. And this is like super, just, I'm not trying to like force this on anyone else. It's just talking about like our beliefs, but it's like, so if you are literally the arbiter of truth, like it's not subjective. Like if like the word itself speaks existence into being, like, and Christ is the word, like that's speaking the whole universe into being, like it's it's not like a human going like, oh, I'm going to say this, like with when every word you say becomes truth, becomes reality. When you say to like water become lava, and it does, like
Right.
you're not living in a subjective reality at that point. You are the objective truth at that point.
Well,
Right.
in addition to that, it's like if Joshua Kemble likes it, it has soul.
Yeah.
That is the
Yeah.
arbiter of soul. That's the definition.
I would say like probably like realistically like God would be the true arbiter of beauty, right? Like, and the so like we get close, we can get close to it, but we're never fully there, and that's kind of like the human condition as well. So, but like I do love that question, and I will say still to this day like that is not an absurd thing to bring up to like the whole flood narrative is really problematic and hard to understand. And like for most Christians, even like for me, I accept it. I don't I don't even like have to chalk it up as like possibly a bad translation or whatever. I just accept it in like a weird kind of like Job type way where the first book of the Bible written, at least that the earliest one book they found was Job. And like the whole point of the story of Job is like God just basically being like, dude, I'm God. Like, who are you?
Yeah, and
And
I don't take the facticity of the flood as a mistranslation. I'm specifically talking about the verse where
oh yeah,
God repented.
well yeah, but like I don't even know if that's a mistranslation. That's what I'm getting at. That one verse, I don't know if that's a mistranslation. I just like for me, I just view it as like God's ways are not our ways, and I know it sounds like a cop out, but it's like that's kind of how I view it, where it's like I don't think God made a mistake by but I also think that like if I let my kid, this is just a window into it that kind of backs up what Corey was saying, but if I let my kid choose his future, right? And he chooses to just like do a bunch of drugs and like becomes a junkie, like I could say that I regretted that choice, even though like technically like I wouldn't take it back, you know? I don't know if that makes sense. Like I wouldn't want him to live a forced life where he had to do
Right.
good. At the same time, like I would totally regret if that happened. So it's like I think you
Yeah,
can
and
feel
that's where I think you're getting into, you know, like I don't think God speaks English or Hebrew or Greek natively, right? There's some sort of communication on a celestial level that is beyond our ability to communicate. And so part of the problem when we try to understand what's going on is we're using English, Hebrew, and Greek words to try to describe things that are like what you're saying. Like if I take the literal word repent, you gave a very nuanced situational thing that could explain that, and I think could that could be true, right? I think definitely he loves his children and feels pain when they suffer, and has regret for the choices that they make and things that cause them to suffer, and I think finding a single word to describe that thousands of years ago becomes difficult.
but I also take like a really weird Augustinian view of things too, because like I said, my faith is not, and I think we have similar stories in this sense. It's like my faith didn't come to me because of like some rational process. Actually,
Right.
it was quite the opposite, where it
Right.
just was like I had an experience with the Holy Spirit, which is weird and hard to explain to people.
Yeah.
But it can happen, and like so for me, like it is yeah, that's a very good point though, Adam. Like that's a good point.
What point did we make?
Well, oh, so he was saying it, so subjectivity relies on the intentions of the subject, but I guess that's that's one of the reasons, Adam, that I was saying like I think that God is both subject and object. Like I don't know, like that's the unique thing about God is like God is like sort of is. He even describes himself like as I am, and that's like one of the most profound like to me that's one of the most profound descriptions of God in the Bible is just like the statement I am, because like how else would you describe yourself if you're just always are? Like, like
Yeah.
he describes himself as like, I am the great I am. Like, it's absurd. But anyhow, the thing that's interesting is like he makes subjective choices, but they're objectively good and they're objectively true. Like, it's not like a subject like us. And that I think we err when we think we are God, or that we can even relate to God. Like, the only window we get into God is Christ. And so like that's like the one kind of window of like God incarnate as man, which is totally all relies on like the Holy Spirit to believe any of it. but what was I gonna say? There was something really cool in the sense of what like, so where was it? Oh yeah. M is subjective and is objective. That's what I'm getting at, is God is and was, like, God is both subjective and objective. It's kind of weird. Like that's the conundrum of God, because he's eternal. So like when you're an eternal being that's perfect, like how would you describe that? You can make choice. You will always make the right choice. But you are perfect and you are all powerful, so you can make the wrong choice, but you will always make the right. It's this weird conundrum of God is both subject and object because he's God. Like, that's what makes it supernatural, I don't know if that makes sense. Like, it is the dichotomy of subject and of object. Like, if I'm trying to I'm failing at articulating, I think, but if you're talking about,
sounds like you guys are kind of agreeing with each other.
Yeah, I think we are. Yeah. It needs its own word for it, and that's why I think God, like when he's trying to describe himself to people, he's just saying I am. Like he like, who introduces themselves like that? Like, hi Corey, and Corey's like, hi, I am. It's like, okay, well,
Popeye does.
yeah, I am what I am. But anyhow, yeah, that was some weird, like, it. I find it fascinating. I still think the flood is tough. The problem of pain is tough. Like, there's little windows we get, but that's where I was going. Sorry. So I tend to get really Augustinian in the sense of like, there are some really hard verses, like by Paul, like kind of later in the New Testament, where it just basically says like God is like a sculptor who like is using clay, and we're kind of like the clay. And who is the clay to tell the sculptor like what clay gets cast into the fire and what clay is saved and molded? And it's like, so Augustinian's view from like that and from multiple verses in the Bible is like, there's total predestination. Like, God is picking and choosing like whoever he pleases to be saved, and chooses who he will reveal himself to. And it literally is his own choice and his own morality, because God is not like bound by our like view of things. I don't know if that makes sense. So
yeah, this is where you and I drastically diverge, if I understand what you're saying correctly.
So like, even though like humans have a choice, and that's clear in the Bible, like that we have free will, it's also clear in the Bible that we have predestination. So it's like there's some kind of truth between.
So I would call that foreordination.
Yeah,
God's knowledge of the future doesn't preclude his gift of agency.
However, that verse about like the clay being cast in the fire and just kind of choosing whatever he pleases does imply the idea that like, and Job as just an entire book, like clearly lays out the idea that like there is clearly like a different level that God is functioning on that we don't have a window into. And when we try to kind of put him into our own moral code, it tends to fall apart. Because we have terrible moral codes that we ourselves can't even live up to. So it's like we're trying to kind of judge perfection by like imperfect lenses. It's kind of weird, but That's but anyhow, I actually think that God can and should have the freedom to kind of pick whoever he wants to and not pick whoever he wants to. And it's really just a mercy for whoever he picks. I don't know if that makes sense. Is that weird? Do we disagree, Corey?
I tend to think that God chooses those that choose him.
I think that's true as well. So it's like I think both can be true. It's kind of weird, but I tend to like think we get little windows into it. Like it's not perfectly clear, but like there's like an Old Testament thing with like a Pharaoh, and you guys have probably heard the story, but it's like an old Old Testament story where the Pharaoh is like basically being asked to let the Israelites go, who are held in captivity, and he constantly has like there's just these passages where it talks about him kind of not wanting to, and then God hardens his heart. But when God hardens his heart so that he can't say he will let them go, it's already after he's kind of made that choice. So it's like it seems like there's a connection, but it's also very mystical. Like it's not super clear cut. So like I don't know. I love the way C.S. Lewis talks about Christianity, because Christianity requires a lot of, obviously like you need conviction and belief in it. That goes beyond just like, I don't think you can force yourself to believe something. But I also think like there's these beautiful, like we get these little windows into the way God works, but we don't always get like these clear pictures. And honestly, I think if it were too spelled out, it might actually seem like it was a lie. Because like one thing you can definitely find, one thing that I have heard this, that like in criminal investigations and stuff, like if everybody's story is like too consistent, like if you talk to like 10 witnesses and they have like perfectly consistent stories, like it's kind of suspicious.
Yeah.
Because everybody has different perspectives on things. And so like if everything's just like magically a little too consistent or a little too clear, it kind of indicates a lie. To me, that's one of the things that actually I think the fact that like there's things that are left ambiguous, it actually makes sense to me. But all of this will sound absurd to somebody who doesn't believe it. You know?
Well, the best description I've heard of like this is you can find all of the place names mentioned in the Iliad and the Odyssey, and that doesn't prove that Zeus is the king of the gods.
Yeah.
Like these discussions are interesting, and yet, it's we're using the logic and reason of man to try to describe things that are spiritual that ultimately prove nothing, because the Holy Spirit is the thing that proves things.
Yeah, and I think we do need to like use our mind, and I think it's important to like kind of think about like possible rational ways in.
Mm-hmm.
And like actually, even if you're a Christian, it's like you're supposed to worship God with your mind and body. So it's like you're not supposed to just like check out your brain, your rational brain when you're doing this stuff. But I also just like, I know for a fact that like there is nothing I can say that's going to convince somebody to believe what I believe beyond just like basic like John stuff, or like Matthew, or it's like there's a pretty clear instruction in that on like, if you want to find out if it's true, like you just kind of pray and ask. Like, but it's like, and strangely, like when I did that, like that's kind of what happened. Like my mind got changed. I was sincerely seeking, and just my mind changed like overnight. It was kind of weird. But that doesn't mean we check out and like don't think about like problematic verses. Like I said, I'm more than willing to say, even though I've heard like Corey's explanation of like the flood thing, I've heard other theologians, I still think it's problematic and it's hard to navigate, and I don't think it's clear cut.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that verse is really like, like if I could highlight verses in the Bible that are like tough to deal with, one would be God after flooding a whole earth of people going, I wish I had never made man. Whether that's a false translation or not, it's like
Right.
that's hard. That's hard
Yeah.
to, and there's a bunch like that. There's a bunch of verses like that, you know, that are really hard. There's a lot of stuff Paul writes in like the New Testament that's like kind of sexist and like it's hard to, you know, it's like I don't know how to navigate that. Like some of it's pretty tough. So, um, but I do think there's windows in. I think we just get windows, but minor inconsistencies in the gospel are, in a way, a good evidence that Jesus is a real historical person. Yeah, I think that's one thing that bugs me is like, I I don't mind people who like don't even buy the gospels, but like there are some people out there who seriously think that historians don't think Christ existed, and that's bizarre. Because like I've met a lot of historians that are like legit, like in college to teach history and not at like religious schools, and like I've never met like a serious historian who like doubted like that Christ was a person who taught and was like walked on the earth. As to whether he like rose from the dead and all of that, that's like more questionable historically, right? But like I don't meet a like I haven't really read a lot of like I think there's maybe one like kind of pop cultural historian, like what is it, Dinesh? I can't remember, some dude who thinks that like tries to make the case that Christ didn't even exist in history, um, but yeah, I don't know. There's some inconsistencies with that are like you kind of seek for explanations, but it can, I think, to somebody who doesn't believe it, it could come across like you're kind of justifying like inconsistencies, you know. So it's hard to know. I feel like I've been rambling for about a half an hour, Corey. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I think you know
Oh,
it's one of the
Adam,
things. It's interesting, but
I don't feel attacked, dude,
oh
at
no,
all. Actually, I love talking about this stuff. I just like, I also, my brain is just like actually considers these things. I like to think about these things. So, yeah, I actually thank you for bringing it up, dude. Sorry. Go ahead, Corey.
no. I was just going to say, uh, to a certain extent, I've just come to realize. I mean, I've had some experiences where I've come up against things that just don't mesh or don't make sense to me, and I've received kind of personal revelation that like it'll make sense at some point, and so like a lot of the stuff where I come up against things and it's like, well, that seems like a conflict. I just kind of have a testimony that eventually those conflicts will be resolved when I understand more. And so those type of things don't. And I know that sounds like a cop out, but those type of things don't. They don't phase me like they did in my youth.
Yeah, and I think for me, it's like I don't. I just like know it's true, and that's the weird part. So it's like a, um, yeah. So it's very much like kind of similar to how Corey was describing it. Like for me, it's just like I don't particularly understand fully the whole clay and fire thing, right? Um, but I even accept like if it is like the Augustinian version of it, like, oh, so be it. Like I know it's weird, but it's like if because I know it's true, like I feel like, well, if that's true, I can't really, me looking out my window and pretending there's not a fire outside is not going to change whether there's a fire outside or not, you know. So it's, I guess it's tough, but I think if it's like, if you believe it's reality, I think it affects that kind of stuff.
I need to.
Yeah, Adam, Weirdly enough, I don't know if you view it as a cop out. It's just like I would have viewed it as a cop out when I was an atheist. You
Right.
know, like when I was a pretty hardcore atheist, I pretty much everything I just said I would have like dissected and attacked because it's and what's weird is because I was there, I can see things from that perspective, and I can definitely see like how frustrating that would be to hear. Like if you're a pure kind of like if you're trying to look at something from like a purely logical standpoint, a lot of this stuff is just going to sound like chaos, you know. So, do. But I also think Adam, I appreciate you talking to us about it and asking questions and stuff, you know. Oh, Corey described his experience as possibly being seen as a cop out. Yeah, I don't view it as a cop out, but when I was
No,
an atheist, I would have been like, Corey, you're
right.
copping out.
And that was my point is I can understand how people would perceive that
Yeah.
as a cop out. I don't feel like it is, but I can understand how people would say, "Oh yeah, well," because I mean, you know, in my faith, you know, the end argument is I prayed about these things and got an answer, and you know, and anything anybody tries to do beyond that is an interesting intellectual exercise, but not ultimately better than the answer. So, yeah.
I love it. I do enjoy the little intellectual exercises though. That's why like Adam, like if anybody ever asks questions about anything, I believe, like I'm always interested. I like talking about stuff. Like, I mean, I spent like half an hour talking about trying to pin down what soul is in art. Like, I'm a thought nerd. I love this kind of stuff. And nor would I like claim to be like the most informed person on anything. So I definitely know more about illustration, I guess, than I probably do about this type of stuff. But it's fun to talk about and think about. Let's see here. But it is funny because different people are wired differently too. Like when my wife was a atheist around the same time, like when we were both dating, um, she never had any issue with like the spiritual side of things. Like sort of like even the idea of like there being this omnipotent being and stuff. Like she didn't have any issue like with that. Whereas I was like the skeptic who was just like that, just you know, like nitpicking all the details and which I think is really astounding that I even changed my mind on it. It still weirds me out. You know, I feel like almost like that might have been humor on God's part, where he's just like, "Oh, okay, you're a skeptic. I will make you believe," and you're like, "Holy crap! Okay, I guess I believe now." But yeah,
That's funny.
Adam, I'd love to hear your beliefs and stuff too, just because it's interesting. I learn a lot from people. I learned a lot from Corey about his beliefs. I think it's a good discussion to have that unfortunately we don't get to have that often because it's like one of those don't talk about discussions, which means I like to talk about it on live streams. I'll be right back though. I'm almost. I think I'm gonna finish this though. This panel. I got like
Yeah.
got this going on. I believe the experience of the Holy Spirit and have experienced it. I just don't believe it's communication with the Creator anymore. Oh, that's right. Okay, you have talked about your beliefs. Like you kind of tie in like Hinduism, and yeah, I think we talked about that. I think I mentioned the C.S. Lewis quote of. I always quote Lewis, but he had this really great statement about how um, it was. It doesn't have to do with what you're saying fully, Adam, but it's like it was kind of a counter to the idea of like people being like, well, you know, like Zeus was a fake god and there's these other fake gods, so why wouldn't this just be another fake god? And it's like, well, there's like the existence of counterfeits actually kind of supports the idea that there might actually be real currency, right? And that's an interesting argument. And then that like different counterfeits would be closer to the real currency, right? So to me, that's an explanation as to why like I think a lot of religions like have some elements of truth in them, because I think there is a true currency that they're trying to get to, and like I think some might be closer than others. So I don't know if that makes sense. And now I'm rambling about weird religious stuff. I don't know. Corey, I think you worked it out. It's starting to work.
When in doubt, black it out, man.
Are you going to clean up the lines that are going through that knob?
It's just the layer order. Yeah, they're gonna be.
Oh, perfect. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
well, looks good.
Yeah. So, in fact, I will do that now by putting it down there. There we go.
Let me see if I can. Okay. Actually, this is going to be better. I'm actually going to break the panel here. What I'm going to do is actually this last thing is going to be a little Sammy sneeze panel where I'm just going to sneeze and then the panel is going to break. Wasn't that weird that like there was a point? I don't know. I think that's funny that there's an era where that was like a winning premise for like a years of weekly strips.
The sneezing kid.
Yeah, can you imagine like a pitch meeting where you're like, all right, Netflix, I got a series pitch for you. Here's my elevator pitch. Okay.
This kid's gonna sneeze.
So it starts, there's a kid. He's kind of making a face like he's a little uncomfortable like this. And then, there's usually something going on where we're setting up, like two characters are setting up a chess set, or maybe they're moving furniture. They're doing something fragile that could easily be knocked down. And then the kid goes, huh? And then goes, achoo, and it destroys everything. And they get mad and kick him. There should be a 5-season show.
My favorite part about that is that that's the result. And they kick him.
Oh, it's so of its time, where it's just like, stupid kid. Like, anyhow. Okay, I'll be right back. Oh, an eternal universe. Huh. That's interesting.
So this is an interesting. I'll let you go, but yeah, okay. I actually believe in creation from something rather than creation from nothing. So I'm I don't know if we're on the exact same page there, but I don't believe in creation from nothing. I believe in organization of matter being the creation event. That matter is eternal as well, as is energy. So interesting stuff. All right, what color do I want these buttons to be?
No starting point to the universe. I do think there was a starting point. I actually think it could even be the Big Bang. But I don't think there was a starting point to God. I don't know if that makes sense. So I think there was like this perfect triune God who was forever existing in like this kind of cool relationship, and then decided, hey, let's create man and let's create the universe and all that stuff. And I think that very well could have been like a Big Bang, evolution, I definitely think. But I definitely think like what's funny is, to me, like, I think it's interesting, like so many apologists like steer away from like evolution when like evolution is like such an indicator of like a beginning, like, you know, and it's like you would think like that would be a real like a really good point, because most evolutionists actually before the Big Bang thought that believed in an eternal universe
Yeah.
that had the process of evolution. So the idea that like the more the science developed, the more they were like, it looks like there was like a point where there was like a beginning. Like when most science like up until then was like, oh, that's insane to say like that this wasn't always there. Like the Earth's always been affixed. Like um I think it's kind of cool. I don't know. I think that's actually like that's a point for creationism, like with evolution. So,
Yeah.
but evolution brings all sorts of weird things, like the problem of death and like death coming into the world before man's sin, like is
Right.
potentially problematic for like theologically. So that I still wrestle with, but I definitely think like there's some kind of indicators that I think the Big Bang's not super ludicrous if you have a conductor, you know. I don't know if that makes sense. It's like I wouldn't find like a Ford motor car like really, like, I know I keep going back to the Ford thing, but I wouldn't find that really preposterous once you posit that there's a guy who made the thing. But if you just say like this car just came out of nothing, like that would be insane, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's a weird it's a weird but fun topic. I don't know. I like that. I like thinking about that stuff though. Okay. This is a weird, it kind of makes sense, I guess, because I'm like on this stream, I don't always talk about religion. But it kind of makes sense considering like the panels that I'm drawing, you know. Let's see. I like the idea of kind of, I think I might actually have, I'm going to have somebody walk out of a panel because it's comics and I can. That's right, suckers. What are you going to do about it?
Okay, so
Do you think like the guy's going to come back on Twitch and be like, who gave you the authority to step out of that panel? Yeah, that joke.
it's just such a weird thing to say.
It
Well,
really
because his
is.
argument was like, I didn't catch the whole thing, but I think his argument was it's a stupid argument to say that there should be diversity in comics. And then his proof of that was who gives you the authority to decide that there should be diversity. Like I wanted to jump in there and say, are you gatekeeping this guy's personal independent comic creation? He can literally make it however he wants. That's the point. Like he gave himself authority by putting in hundreds of thousands of hours of work to create it. That's where the authority came from. Is it's his comic and he can do whatever he wants with it. I thought that was the part about that really I enjoyed. Was it's like, who gives you the authority to question what he does in his comic? He can do whatever he wants. It's his.
How dare he start a comics festival to help his friends that aren't being represented be represented by being proactive and finding your own audience and building your own scene? Like, how dare punk rockers make their own music? Like, I mean, it's definitely one of those weird, how dare those kids play rock and roll? Like, come on.
Right.
I thought we were past that, guys.
We're never past that as a society.
I hope so at some point. Oh, Corey, how are you doing, man?
Oh, doing all right. I'm tired of working on what I'm working on.
Me too.
You're also tired of me working on what I'm working on?
Yeah, I'm totally sick of your animation, man. I don't want to see it anymore. Who gave you the authority to work on that?
Who gave you the authority?
I really love that, actually. I think that's like a very, like, I don't know, it's a very telling statement too, because it signifies like someone who thinks there's like cops like everywhere in the world, like like everything's like somehow assigned by like a police officer or something.
Oh yeah.
Like, I wonder if that person goes to the grocery store, like, who gave you the authority to choose those like those foods? You're like, I don't know, like they were on the shelf, I just kind of picked them up.
I decided that I want them, so I took them.
I don't know, I like started a YouTube channel and like just like film when I talk with friends on here. Like it's kind of a weird thing, but they just sort of like, that's sort of what they do on YouTube. Anyhow,
Oh man.
Adam's in, man. One thing I like about Adam, like when you're in the chats and stuff, is like, I like that you think about stuff. I just like, I also like, I guarantee you're probably a person who overthinks about stuff, because I think Corey and I are classic cases of overthinkers. But I think there's like a unique, to me, I think there's a bond between people who overthink. So I hope that doesn't sound pretentious, because I'm not saying we overthink well. But I think we are people who, like, once the gears go, it's really hard to stop.
I need to think this through. Okay, so if I yep, okay. If I do this correctly, then I don't have to mask anything, which is pretty much my goal all the time. What can I cheat to get away with this?
How can I avoid the work? And then sometimes the avoidance becomes harder than the work.
Yeah. Okay, so all of this becomes the part that goes behind. Okay.
Well, that'll work fine. You don't have to do like, that's not too bad of a mask, right?
Oh, I'm not. Masking stuff is fine. Masking stuff in animation is more difficult because the mask changes every frame.
Yeah, it's really obnoxious, and then you have to go in there and adjust it.
So what I'm doing instead is just making 2 copies of this thing and deleting the part that is underneath it, and then I just sandwich it in between. So
that works.
Yes, it's my cheap trick.
I wish I knew a song by Cheap Trick off the top of my head, because that would have been a perfect joke.
It would have been.
I need Luhan here, because he would be able to. I'm like, I don't know my 80s rock as well as like Jim knows his 80s rock. Let's see here. I'm going to try to, I think I'm going to have Jim on Artcasters, not this next one, but the one after, to talk about naming things.
Naming things?
Yeah, like coming up with cool names for projects. I think the reason that was brought up was like, every time I say Pleasure Beast, which is his comic, his latest short.
Yeah.
My wife laughs. Like, it doesn't matter if she's like in the other room, I'll just hear her giggle, because it's just such a silly name.
Oh yeah.
But it's great, and Jim comes up with really good names for his stuff. So he was like, that should be a topic, and I'm like, yeah, that actually is a good topic, like naming your projects. And I have the ultimate worst example of it, because I do not have the best name for my comic, although I think it's the only fitting name. It is definitely not like a very descriptive name, like 2 stories. is kind of like naming your comic best coffee. I actually wonder, I should look on Amazon. Is there a comic called just like the best comic ever?
Well, because I am easily distracted, I will look that up for you.
I'm just curious because that would be a great comic title.
Yeah. Powers, the best ever. Batman the Dark Knight Returns graphic novel. Marvel's The Avengers, Taco and Pizza. No, there is not one named that.
Why did I say that out loud? Now somebody's gonna take that. Because if you think about it, like there's probably a lot of people who are like, I want to get into comics. What's the best comic ever?
There's a book called Best Jokes Ever.
Yeah.
But no, these aren't even objectively the best comics ever. They're like random.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, if you had a comic just called the best comic ever, it'd probably show up pretty quick.
Yeah.
Like the only problem is if it's not a good comic, then you know exactly what every review is going to say.
Right.
Unfortunately, the title isn't true.
You got to read Adam's comment about your overthinking comment.
I really hate the term overthinking, but definitely I do what most people refer to as overthinking. Working on plotting my comic for 25 years is, probably overthinking a bit. No. Like, I don't mean overthinking as a diss. I went on a podcast called Beautiful Voyager, and it's this. I'm blanking out on her name, but she's a really good writer, and she literally just has a whole community based on overthinking, and that tends to, like, overthinkers tend to be really excellent at what they do, but they also tend to like be more prone to like depression and sort of mental illness and stuff. But at the same time, like, it's not like a weakness to like overthink. It's just there's some people who just think a lot more than other people, and that doesn't mean like they think better or worse, but I don't mean it as an insult. I actually, the people I get along with the most in life tend to overthink. I don't know if that makes sense.
I'm offended. Just kidding.
Deep thinking is a good way. I think of it as overthinking, though, because sometimes it does get me into trouble. So I guess for myself, I think of it as overthinking. Because like there are some times where it's like good to just kind of look at a sunset and not be like, how did the mechanics of the universe work again? Like, sometimes it's better to just like see the sunset. Be like, all right. In my head, it's better. I don't know. Maybe it's not. Maybe that's grass is greener. But I do enjoy thinking about things, and I think it's one of those things where you can't not.
And I thought I had hours left, and I have hit a wall.
I understand. I actually have to be done very soon.
I mean, that like it's one of those walls that like came out of nowhere because I was feeling great, and then like 2 minutes ago I was like, holy crap, I need to be asleep now.
Yep. All right, man. We'll call it. I think that's a good call.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna finish coloring this thing just because.
That also might be the having a kid thing. Not as a cop out, but just.
Yeah. I honestly, ever since Rosalind got here, I have not had the same stamina, and it's weird because I literally am not doing as much as Malia is, and like what I am doing is not physically taxing, But I don't know. I took 2 naps today. Like I took a half-hour nap at lunch because I was able to eat quicker than I normally do. And then I came home and took a nap as well. And I'm still like beat. It's crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy. I think it just it's an additional thing. So even if it's not a lot, like when you're spinning 40 plates, adding a 41st, well, it may not seem like a lot. It's going to be a lot harder.
Yeah, it's like I've always looked at people who have multiple kids and been like, how does that work? Like, and now that we're outnumbered, it is so nuts. Like I looked up today, I'm like sculpting something to help my daughter with a diorama for a book report. You know, Maddox is like climbing on top of. He drags chairs, like he drug his high chair across the entire upstairs, so that he could get to this candy that I just like was like, oh, I don't want you to have this right now. So I just like put it on the mantle. And so Malia's like wearing Roslyn, cooking dinner. I'm covered in clay with my 11-year-old trying to help her with her homework, or like spray paint and black glitter and clay. And we both look up, and there's just physically nothing that we could do to stop him from climbing on this thing that's like 5 feet in the air as a 2-year-old. So he's just up there doing whatever he wants. And I was just like, well, there are more kids than adults now. This is just what our life is. I don't even know. There's nothing we can do. It's just like, okay, well, and I don't even know if that story makes any sense, but there's something about that constantly being outnumbered that is just exhausting.
Yeah, I guess
So,
it's like just having to kind of embrace like some of I guess you just got to get really comfortable with embracing a lack of control.
right.
Which is because that is yeah, I've heard that from other parents before
It's like,
about
is it
once you're
Jim
outnumbered.
Gaffigan? Somebody gives I think it might be Gaffigan, who says, having a third kid is like, imagine that you're drowning and then somebody tosses you a baby. And I always thought that was funny, but now I get it. I'm like, oh yeah, it is. It's exactly like that. So,
Oh man, I can't even imagine. I have enough trouble just juggling the one with the million like projects I want to do.
yeah,
And honestly, I'm not even doing a million. I'm just doing one. It's hard.
I hate these colors. I need to stop. I'm not. I'm now at the point where I'm not doing anything good.
Yeah, you're gonna do more damage than good.
I mean, I'm just gonna call these flats and then try to decide on colors once I've had a good night's sleep.
Yeah, I think it's a good call, man. All right. Well, thanks for hanging out and chatting and talking about like, oh my gosh, I don't even know what to title this one.
I think you should title it 42.
42, the meaning of life, the universe, and everything.
Yep.
It is highly possible. I'm super close to done too. Well, thanks, Adam, for hanging in and chatting, talking theology and soul and like all the crazy tangents we've gone on. Thank you, Corey, for being alive after having so many crazy amounts of children.
I continue to exist.
Continue to be alive. And congrats, man. Like, I am excited for you guys, though, because
we got your card. That was very nice and generous of you guys.
nice. Cool. No worries, dude. Use it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be a rough ride, but I think it'll be worth it. The cool thing is too, when you're older, you guys are gonna have like a full house
Yeah.
and a whole crew of people backing you up, which is great. So
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty fun. I mean, already it's pretty entertaining just having a buddy that wants to go kayaking with me and ride motorcycles with me. And, Scarlett's always asking to go on motorcycle rides, and Maddox wants to ride the speeder bike, which is what he calls the mini bike.
I think Maddox is eventually going to be the kid who's just like, I'm going to hop off this bike. Like, he's like a daredevil,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
He's a fearless little dude. But he's going to be, I don't know, he's a fun kid.
Yeah,
it's going to be interesting seeing like what comes out with Ruth, like what her quirks are going to be,
Yeah.
I don't know. Be cool to see. All right. So Matt is definitely rough, but I think I did finish this page. I gotta hold on. Let me see if I can pull it up a little bit. So I finished the page where it's like badoosh, skadoosh. I think it's gonna say. Okay.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe that took me so long. It's like I'm looking at this and it's nothing.
Well, welcome to my world. That's how I feel every time I finish one of these roughs.
Oh,
These 3-hour roughs that I think will take 10 seconds. All right, guys. So thank you so much for everybody who's watched this. And thanks, Corey, for hanging out. Corey, where can everybody go to find your work and all that wonderful stuff?
You can find my stuff at CoreyKerr.com. CorYKERR.com.
That is correct. And you guys should go check out his animations. And also his Instagram is awesome. He's always posting like little snippets of the animation projects he's working on and awesome stuff. So I highly recommend it. I will just say I will be sleeping shortly. And other than that, you can catch me on my YouTube. I might even be doing, well, I probably won't be doing a live stream tonight because tonight I'm going to be playing rock and roll with my friend because I'm vaccinated. Yeah. But when I'm not playing rock and roll or art directing or anything like that, I'm working on this book. That's what I'm working on the sequel to. So 2 stories, book 1. Make sure you've picked up a copy. If you haven't yet, it's a good time to go get it. And yeah, I think that'll pretty much wrap it. One thing before we go. On whose authority did we do this podcast? Like this video? Like who gave us the permission?
The Comics Code Authority.
Oh, thank you. I forgot about that. The Comics Code Authority. That answers it all. That's right. We're approved by the Comics Code Authority. All right, guys. Have a good night, and we'll see you on the next stream.